to go, Dave?
Recording in progress.
Ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome to the regular Midcoast Community Council for April 27th, 2022. This is a remote meeting only, perhaps for the last time. We may be doing a hybrid next time. We voted on that at the last meeting. Len, would you please call the roll?
Dave?
Here.
Dan? Dan?
Yes, I'm here.
Jill not here. Michelle?
Here.
I'm here. Greg?
Here.
Claire?
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. We'll start with reports from public agencies. Starting with Lena, please, from the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. And I've got my camera off for once, just for everyone's benefit. I'm not ready for human consumption today. So the board has moved from getting regular weekly updates on COVID to updates when something different has happened. So the last update is from April 14th, and I don't want to go into huge detail because it's from quite a bit ago, but basically the BA2 variant is now the predominant strain throughout our county, the Bay Area, California. It has caused an uptick in COVID cases, but we are still categorized as a low COVID-19 community level under the CDC's criteria. I can put a little bit of what that data looked like as of April 14th in the chat for everyone. I got to figure out exactly how tall Len Erickson is this morning because we both attended the Safe Routes to School El Granada Elementary School walk audit, which was really exciting. And I'm looking forward to some of the suggestions and how the county can hopefully contribute and support promoting safe routes for kids to walk to school. And then following Supervisor Horsley's interest in firearm relinquishment, 2 working groups have been created at the county level. One to investigate expanding the sheriff's office, what used to be known as the Domestic Violence Compliance Unit, and opening that up to other criteria for firearm relinquishment. And a second group to investigate California State Bill 320, which went into effect in January, which basically puts a lot more onus on the courts to make sure that people are returning firearms they're no longer allowed to own, and how other county departments can support that. And lastly, there will be a groundbreaking for a section of the multimodal trail on June 2nd. It is open to the public. We would love to have people come. We would love to have MCC attend. And I'm going to put in the chat one more time the civil engineers that are best to reach out to if the community has any questions about the project, as well as Bray Hunter from Supervisor Horsley's staff, who can also help answer questions as needed. And those are all my updates for today, and I would love to take questions.
Is the person with their hand raised on iPhone, is that a question for Lena?
My question is not for Lena.
Okay, we'll hold it then.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for Lena, which is I'm wondering if you should perhaps take a closer look at the COVID data. Look at the website that I'm looking at. San Mateo County has the highest transmission rate in the state, so that seemed a little unnerving to me.
Sure, I definitely will look at it. I usually look at the updates we get from our health department, and we didn't get one this week, but I did not do my own research, so I'll definitely do that. Thanks, Claire.
Okay. Sid, did you have a question for Lena?
I sure do. Let's see, I'll put my hand down before I forget. I wanted to ask about the coastside mitigation fee, which hasn't been raised since 2016. That was the last time we received a update from Steve Monowitz. And I've brought this up in the past, and I don't want to get brushed off again. I'm wondering if you guys have made any progress whatsoever in getting Steve Monowitz to do what he's supposed to do, which is to give the county board of supervisors an annual report and analyze the current rates that they're supposed to charge to the developers who are either remodeling or building new construction residential properties on the Midcoast, because that is how we fund the Midcoast mitigation fee. Lena?
You know, I can't remember what the last response was from planning that we had sent to you, so I'd have to go back and look at that, because I remember at the time that was deemed as sufficient from our office, so I'll need to look back and see, and I'm happy to resend you that information.
Well, actually, I got information from Claire saying they passed the buck to Nicholas, but that still doesn't raise the rate.
That's not what I said.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Something
There's
about Nicholas.
Nicholas will be addressing how the park department is spending the money.
Yes, but that doesn't, it's Steve Monowitz's department that is to raise the fee annually.
Correct.
And adjust the fee as needed. So
Correct.
that report hasn't been given out since 2016. So that's, Lena, that is what I definitely wanted to follow up on. Thank you.
Thanks.
Also, I was glad they passed the CTMP, Connect the Coastside, today at the Planning Commission, but it still concerns me that there's no emergency evacuation plan as part of it. So I was not the only person speaking at that meeting that had that concern. That's it. You can pass that on too if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Dan, did you have a question for Lena?
Sorry.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Hi, Lena. And, you know, it looks to me like Caltrans has sprayed with Roundup from Medio Creek all the way to Main Street in Half Moon Bay on the east side. It's very clear that you know, a 5-foot swath from you know, Medio Creek to Main Street was sprayed. And I was surprised, talked to some other community members are also kind of concerned with this practice. And I thought that this issue was taken care of many years ago. Now, I understand that Caltrans might say, oh, fire, this, that, you know, fire concern. But, you know, they mowed it first and then they sprayed it. And which I'm going to take a moment to explain why that doesn't make sense, because in order for the Roundup to be effective, it needs to get on the broad leaf, and you remove the leaves and then you spray the soil. And there's drainage right there, you know, the whole length of the way there's drainage. So I guess my question to you, Lena, is you know, are you aware of this? And wasn't that like asked them not to do this, you know, for all the reasons that are obvious?
Sure. I and the supervisor have not heard of this. I'm sure he would have alerted me if he had heard about it. So what I can do is talk to the supervisor and then send an email over to our district director and confirm what's going on and get that to you, Dan.
I understand. Hey, thank you very much, Lena. You're doing a great job, by the way. And the only sad thing is that I don't get to see your face right now, but that's okay. I understand. That's okay. Okay.
Well, we'll do the hybrid meetings and you will.
There we go. All right. Okay. Hey, thank you, Lena.
Thank you.
Sabrina Brennan, you have a question for Lena?
I do have a question. So today at the Planning Commission, the Sierra Club Coastal Issues Committee and the Equity Committee urged the county to discontinue the propane distribution center, which is located directly next to a high-density, low-income housing community known as Pillar Ridge. And a letter was also sent to the Planning Commission by the Sierra Club on April 25th. There's been a history of propane leaks. There's a nasty odor problem. There's tanker truck traffic, which our roads and access on Highway 1 can't support. There's just a whole lot of issues there. All of this negatively impacts the densely populated low-income neighborhood of Pillar Ridge that includes many families of color. And around 2003, the county approved a rent control ordinance and vacancy control ordinance that includes no more than 75% of the cost of living increase for each year, and this includes the Pillar Ridge neighborhood. The county has a responsibility to protect these communities. Propane and diesel generators have been linked to fires and power shutdowns. Propane is an instrument of sprawl and poverty that pushes development beyond the settlement pattern. This results in dewatering and habitat and species loss. Health consequences are significantly worse than piped-in methane. Switching to electric stoves and heat pumps via solar and batteries cuts greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. Solar is a safer solution. For example, Paradise residents gauged how fast the fire was approaching their homes by the rate at which propane tanks were exploding. I would really like to encourage Supervisor Horsley to get on this issue and to move forward with some sort of a nuisance ordinance. This was mentioned by Steve Monowitz during the Planning Commission meeting today as an option. Not a single member of the public who commented today, and there were many, supported the propane at this location. So clearly the propane distribution needs to be moved to a different location. This is not appropriate. We can't put it next to our low-income communities of color in a densely populated situation. So that doesn't make any sense. So we really need Supervisor Horsley to take the lead on this and to come up with some sort of alternative for a location or discontinue this completely, which would be absolutely fine, I think, on the part of the community.
Can we let Lena address this, please?
Yeah.
So I hope that the county can address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. And those were great remarks. And it sounded like maybe some of it was written. So since you had so much good detail in there, you could possibly email that to me. I'd be more than happy to bring it to the supervisor.
I'll email it and I'll put it in the chat. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Harvey.
Greetings. I have a couple of updates. At the last city council meeting, we approved the construction contract for Carter Park. I don't know if you're aware, but Carter Park is going to be a $6 million project that will be a wonderful venue with all kinds of outdoor attractions, an amphitheater, a sound system, a place to do plays, music. It will really be a gem of the coast. And we're grateful to Assemblyman Berman, who got us $5 million of the $6 million. And that should be built by the fall, all God willing. So that's a really exciting project that the city is going to be very proud of. Also, at the last city council meeting, we approved $300,000 for our community financial assistance program for local nonprofits that are helping with the life support, basically, that many people on the coast are going to need. So we're going to be supporting fewer but fewer organizations, but bigger grants. 300,000 is the most we've given so far. And I'm really proud to think that our city council is really concerned about people who really need these support services. So we're glad to try to help in any way that we are able. I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has.
Linda, do you have a question for Harvey? Your hand is up.
It was actually a question for Lena. If she's talking to Supervisor Harsey about the issue with the propane gas, would it make a difference to him if the council sent him a letter on the topic?
We have done so.
Have we? But not recently so.
And we also we forwarded our previous letters to them recently so that they would be able to review them.
I appreciate that, Len, because I personally hadn't seen it, so good to know for me, my reference. Thank you.
Good point, though. Dan, you got a question for Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Harvey, for your report. Harvey, $6 million for the Carter Park project. Excuse me. You know, I'm not against money being spent on a public works project which creates jobs. I'm not against that at all. But you know, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of concrete poured. $6 million, really? My question to you is the result. I haven't seen the plans, and you know, I'm sorry, I haven't. But my question to you is, when it's all said and done, will there be a kind of a natural coast-side open space feel to this park? $6 million. Can you go over maybe, you know, where the money's what's going to be done? I'm curious. I love that area. It's, you know, I used to go to Pasta Moon and look out the window and, you know, see that whole area. And it was so natural from my memory. And, you know, very pleasant to be down there. And I'm just curious, what are the plans?
If you go to the city website, you can actually see the preliminary design. It's going to be an amphitheater that is going to have natural seating in ways that will allow people to enjoy the open space. There's going to be a trail around the outside of the park for bike and pedestrian use. You know, it's right up against the creek, so it will have access to the open space near the creek. It's going to have first-rate amenities so that the plays, the music, speeches, all of that will be accessible to everyone. And I know $6 million sounds like a lot of money, but not when you actually start pouring concrete and building things. So we're going to hope the open space nature of that area will be preserved. So,
thank you. I'll look at the plans. Thank you.
Please do.
Sheena, I'm a little nervous about iPhone. I presume you're wanting to talk about public comment. Is that correct?
That's correct. I didn't know when to raise my hand, so if you want me to remove it, I'll remove it.
It doesn't matter. I'll remember you now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sheena from RCD, you have a report for us, please? Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Hi, folks. Sorry for that delay. My phone was acting up. I'm joining my computer. Hopefully the audio is okay. So yes, this is Shana Sidhu, San Mateo RCD. Just wanted to give a quick updates. I understand that my written report updates were shared at the last meeting, so thank you. So just to recap on those, is our chipper program for the Midcoast will be May 9th through 12th. Our information's on both the Fire Safe Council and the San Mateo RCD website for details about which streets will be served. The second part was about the Quarry Park shaded fuel break project and hazardous tree removal. That's part of the Coastal Conservancy funded grant for the work in Quarry Park. We had our public bid opening last week, and 5 contractors did bid on the project. So we're in the process of reviewing all of the selected potential contractors with our partners at County Park, reviewing their references, and at our next board meeting, which is the third Thursday of May, we will be forwarding the selected contractor that the staff is recommending to our RCD board to approve, and then work would start in early June for the work along the shaded fuel break. And then I did want to be here to give an update on the scoping project, which is what I'm guessing many of you are interested in hearing about. So here's the update. The consultants have developed a draft of wildfire risk assessment models and are connecting with project partners for technical input and incorporating the feedback into the model. I know some of you are interested in the specific elements of the model. So here's a recap of the completed inputs that are going to be used for the fire assessment model. I should actually probably take a step back for anybody who might not be familiar with the scoping project. This is a scoping project to model the risk assessment and then develop a suite of possible potential actions that we can use to mitigate risk of fire approaching the community of El Granado. So the RCD has hired consultants and is working with a suite of partners to develop this. One of the partners is MCC. And right now we're in that process of the consultants working on the modeling. So to develop the fire risk model, there's a few inputs that they've been working on. So here are some of the completed inputs. They're using the county's fine scale vegetation LIDAR data. That includes the elements of topography, canopy height, canopy cover, canopy bulk density, canopy base height, and surface fuels. And they're just making sure that they've done the ground truthing to make sure that they're matching up with what has been captured on the map, and it's in El Granado. So it's this fine scale level of fine tuning that. Weather data is included, which combines both the peak wind speed, wind direction, and field moistures of both the prevailing winds and the Diablo wind conditions. I know that incorporating the Diablo wind conditions has been a big concern of the community. So they are incorporating both of those data sets into the model. Community risk analysis is based on assets and strategic areas, which include community inputs that we collected during the listening session and the data collection period in January. So those are all the things that we want to protect in the community. And then the consultants did landscape segmentation. So this is a fine scale division of the landscape. And after they partition the landscape into these subdivisions, they can then use that to identify key areas for treatment, for vegetation treatment. And so the vegetation treatment projects, so the next step is vegetation treatment projects that are most likely to reduce wildfire risk have been drafted, and they'll be revised and updated as the model is complete. So right now they're calibrating the model and making sure that it fits and is ready for the final product. So our next steps on the project are the consultants will be continuing to meet with project partners for technical input as the modeling is nearing completion. And all partners reconvene once the modeling is complete and a draft suite of actions is ready for review. And so at this point, we are including another meeting. We originally had only planned 3 meetings with the partners, but we're going to be including a 4th meeting. And so that is pushing back the project by 1 month. So we'll give them more time, the consultants more time to develop a high quality product, and then it'll be ready for the public. We're expecting in June. A date for the public meeting has not been planned companion, I would like to make sure I'm working with Michelle and Claire to pick a date that doesn't conflict with, MCC meetings or anything else that the MCC is doing. But that will get scheduled soon, and I'm hoping to share that date with you as soon as I can.
Thanks, Sheena. Greg, you had a question for Sheena?
Yeah, Sheena, can you explain the input that I think it was Fire Chief Cox provided and what changes in the analysis resulted from his comments?
There was a lot of good input that he provided. We had a good meeting with him and the consultants. I don't know how to summarize that on the spot. Do you have any particular question?
No, because I don't know what his input was. And I'm wondering because it apparently was significant or perceived significant by some of the people attending.
Yeah. I think that there was a question about if publicly there was some question about if there was going to be structure to structure included in the model. And so we just wanted to clarify that this whole project is about the wildfire approaching and preventing the wildfire from approaching the community. So we had some good discussion about that. There was some discussion about, do you think the community would like to potentially do structure to structure? I think that would be like a secondary project if folks are interested in seeing if there's a fire inside the community and how it could spread out. But then we were talking about how we can best develop vegetation management projects to prevent them or mitigate the risk to the community.
Well, I guess my question is, if you're simulating a fire, aren't you going to include the homes? I mean, we've heard repeatedly that the homes were the fuel in Paradise and other places. So if the fire starts in the vegetation, don't you still have to model the transit into the occupied areas?
The idea is for preventing wildfire from reaching the community. It's a little bit different once it gets into the community.
Dan, you have a question for Sheena.
Yeah, thank you, Sheena. I'm sorry, but I have to say that this whole scoping project seems to get overly just more and more complicated. I know there's a lot to it. I understand that, but I have to make the statement that, really, truly the simple need now is to start removing the small trees, the low-hanging fruit, save some of the larger trees for aesthetics and everything, and to have a chipping and composting program on site to reduce the unnecessary CO2 emissions from all of the trucking of material out and then trucking new material back in for, for replanting and everything. So, all that can be, should be talked about right now in the scoping project. My question to you is this being talked about? Two things. Low-hanging fruit. Just thin out all the small trees now, which would reduce the fire immediately, and chipping it all up and composting it on site, and similar to what they do up in Golden Gate Park, and then reuse this material on site. For water retention, for erosion control, for the list goes on and on.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've heard some of this before. Do you have a new update on this, Sheena?
The project, so when I was talking about the little bit of the segmentation of the landscape, and that's to identify the best places for this vegetation project, right? Like we're trying to have a science-based decision-making process of where best to do these vegetation projects. Like we can't do them everywhere. Resources are not endless. And so one of the great outputs that are going to be coming out of this is we're going to be able to identify the best places to the vegetation projects and the treatment that's the best. that is part of the consultant process. And then just to the second point, Dan, I hear you if you're saying that this sounds complex. I know some of the things that I shared today. I don't know if this is in response to exactly what I shared today, but I'm also hearing folks, they're calling me, emailing me, wanting to know more details. So part of that today was some folks have been wanting to hear the extra details. So I shared that. It might be overly complex for folks who are like, we just want the final product. I get that. I was just trying to help satisfy some of the requests I've gotten for wanting more details about progress.
Okay. Thanks, Gina.
I know you're in a difficult position, and thank you for your work, but you heard my concerns, and thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Gina. Is there anybody else from a government agency? If not, I have an announcement. Reminder that a week from tonight at 7 p.m., the MCC is sponsoring a forum of candidates for the 3rd District Supervisor. It'll be online. We have the ID and password in the chat right now. What I'd like to encourage people to do is not only attend, but to send in questions. Questions can be sent in now. I'm sure everybody's got things they'd like to know the next supervisor's opinion on and things they'd like to advocate for. So please take advantage of this opportunity to send your question and hopefully it will be asked and answered next week. If anybody wants any flyers, I have a few. Okay, any other announcements or public officials? If not, we'll move on to public comment. I did have an email request to read something for public comment, but it is on an item which is in the agenda. So I'll be holding off on that, but it will be read. This is up to 3 minutes on anything not on the agenda. So we'll start with iPhone.
Hi, thank you. I don't know why my thing comes through as iPhone instead of my name, but my name's Marcy Amato. I was the victim of an assault at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve on March 28th. There was another assault in that area on the following day, the 29th. And I'd like to ask the council in going forward to help get San Mateo County Parks to increase its enforcement, improve its enforcement, and improve its response times. Currently, staffing's inadequate. There's no actual enforcement of off-leash dogs in the reserves and the bluffs and the county shorelines, within the harbor and the beaches. On the 28th, it was citizens that noticed people and a dog that were harassing seals in the restricted area at FMR, and they contacted the rangers. There was only one ranger there to respond. There was another that was attempting to come from Pacifica, but that posed a problem for the one ranger. And I've been advised that there are no rangers there at times, which I did not know. Other than, before 8 and 5 or whatever the hours are. And secondly, I'd like to ask the council to discuss ways for the Midcoast to be able to share community safety concerns with the public. Not everything is submitted to the media for the police log. The only other sort of semi-outlet that we have is Nextdoor, and of course Nextdoor can choose what's being discussed or remove topics. So I feel the Midcoast needs a platform to share these types of community information if the local law enforcement is not going to do so. And that's all I had to say tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marcy. The next person does not have an identification. It's Fran Pollard. Okay, please go ahead, Fran. 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you made the announcement that you're meeting next week with the candidates night. And also on your website, it shows that the county parks is presenting the El Granada Quarry Park master plan that same night, the same time. I'm wondering if somebody can make a change. I know that's hard to do with two big important meetings. I can't believe the county went and did that when they I guess this isn't your regular night either. So I don't know. What are we going to do?
Thank you, Fran. We're not going to undo the candidate nights. That's way too complicated, but I will contact Parks Department and see if that can be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I also say to Sheena, thank you, Sheena, again for working on the fire prevention, but I still want to see the border cleared around the community that surrounds the community, or that the community surrounds. I hope we haven't given up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Carlisle Ann Young, 3 minutes, please.
Hi. I just want to say something else, piggybacking on what Marcy Amato said, and that was that a Fitzgerald Marine Reserve docent, or I guess you would call her a SEAL counter, was punched out and sent to the hospital with a concussion in that same event. And we really need more enforcement on it from the county, especially at the county parks. And I guess I can see why they don't want to enforce the leash law, but on the other hand, seals have died and dogs are not allowed in the Marine Reserve, and I really think that that needs to be addressed. But the other question I had was, do you guys have a timer? Because I waited for months for you guys to bring up the airport thing, and I was cut off before the 2 minutes. And I questioned it at the time because the person before me got quite a bit of time to talk. And then I was asking my questions. You said, that's your 2 minutes. And I looked afterwards at the video, wasn't anywhere close to 2 minutes. So do you guys have one of those on-screen timers like they have for the county?
No, we don't.
Well, who's doing the timing? Do you just guess as it goes, or?
I write down the time when the person starts talking.
Well, you better go back and review that tape because you took a lot of time off of my clock and I didn't get a chance to ask the airport person, the questions that I wanted to ask. And I was pretty much the person advocating to have the airport come and speak at the MCC. So I really especially didn't appreciate it. So unless you're just trying to muffle and mute people who are talking, but that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Sabrina Brennan, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. I want to first start by saying that I really appreciate the previous speaker's comments, Marcy, and it was really shocking to find out that 2 of our beloved Friends of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve volunteers and volunteers for the Marine Mammal Center were assaulted at the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. It was a very, very, very violent attack. It caused both women to have to seek medical care at a hospital. And one was taken away in an ambulance. So, I just want to make sure you guys understand how serious this attack was. One of our neighbors and volunteers was punched out to the point where she was knocked out cold, and then the assailant continued to beat her unconscious body. She was then taken by ambulance to the hospital. This is absolutely not an acceptable situation. A ranger who understood the danger walked by her and the other victim and did not tell them that there was a risky situation at hand, probably because he was overwhelmed and he didn't have the ranger support that he needed. So he was scrambling to try to get some backup, which sadly there wasn't any other backup rangers at the reserve that day at that time. So a lot happened. There's no way I could cover it in 3 minutes. I weirdly and coincidentally was assaulted the following day at the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and it was a theft and an assault, and my iPhone was stolen and then later found. It paled in comparison to what happened on March 28th. My assault was on March 29th. But long story short, something has got to be done about the lack of staffing at our county park at the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. The rangers are not safe. The ranger was threatened that day and had no one there to help him. And members of the public were brutally attacked. And then the same sort of, well, I don't want to say same, but a similar situation occurred the very next day with a different couple. It's all really bizarre, and I'm still trying to make sense out of it myself. My wife and I have discussed the fact that it's not safe to walk in the Marine Reserve alone, and that makes me really angry. I've lived here for well over 20 years. I've never had a problem like this, but you know, we have an uptick in use and we have a lack of staffing, and this has got to be addressed by the county. They have got to designate more funding for proper staffing at the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. I'm really upset about it. It's really unacceptable, and I hope that the Midcoast Community Council will please put this on a future agenda to have this addressed by the county, because I haven't heard anything from the county directly, and neither have the other victims. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a presentation from Parks Department on the 25th of May. Let's see, we have one more. I'm not going to take public comment from council members, but I do have one more hand up from Sue and Rusty, and that'll be the last of public comment.
Hi, I wanted to bring up some goings on at the Martini Creek parking lot at Montara State Beach. There's been cars doing donuts in that parking lot. The first time was either Friday or Saturday night, and I think it was around 10:30. I wasn't really paying that much attention. Then again, Monday night at 11 o'clock, they're down there doing donuts. And again, last night at about 11:20, they were down there doing donuts. The first night that there were several cars. The next night, I think 2 or 3 cars. And last night was just 1 car. I did call the state parks beach and left messages. They haven't gotten back to me. I called the sheriff's non-emergency, and the officer suggested that I call them about an hour before it happens, which I don't know how I would do that because I'm not sure what days they're going to do it or what time they're going to do it. And I would prefer to be asleep and not be up calling them. So I suggested that he let the substation know and maybe they could pay attention. It is the parking lot for Montara State Beach, the northernmost, the Martini Creek. Also on weekends at Gray Whale Cove. There are parties on the weekends. You can see people packing up all kinds of belongings and firewood and balloons and all kinds of things and going down there and having parties. It's like the place to do these raves now that Tanitas Creek is closed. It'd be nice to have gates on those parking lots, or at a minimum, maybe put some the parking blocks in the Montara one. But yeah, it's just becoming party central because there's no enforcement or patrols. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Claire, I'm certain that you're going to appreciate my comments. Will be very short.
I'm really running late. I've promised some people that we would be up to date.
Well, it's about crime generally, just very short.
No, I'm running.
Crime is up. Sorry. Crime is up, so everybody needs to be careful.
Okay. We need to move on to the consent agenda, and there's one item on the consent agenda, which is the minutes for April 13th. Is there a motion to approve this, or
I will make a motion to approve the minutes. There are several minor typos that Greg and I noticed, and those, so I will move that we approve the minutes with those typos fixed.
I second.
I think I'm going to pull them.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll add that to the end of the other items and move on to the regular agenda. And the first item on the regular agenda, I had actually promised to have a certain time on this, so I did have to move on. We are somewhat familiar with the County Office of Sustainability, but there's also another organization that it looks at sustainability in San Mateo County, and they're private. They've been around for a long time, and they do some very interesting things. I thought we should be aware of them as well. And the executive director of Sustainable San Mateo has agreed to present information about their programs to us tonight. Is Christine Kolzrung. I asked her how to pronounce it, and I'm pronouncing it even worse than I did before. But Christine, welcome, and you're welcome to share your screen.
Well, thank you very much, Clara and everyone. Pleasure to meet you, even though via Zoom tonight. So let me just try to get us started here. And I think you did a good job of pronouncing my name. It's Christine Kolzrung. So I think you can all see my screen, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So we can just get rolling. So as Claire explained, we are a nonprofit and our vision is a sustainable future for everyone in the county of San Mateo. So we are not affiliated with the Office of Sustainability, but we certainly know them well. We have a similar mission. So we've been also working together on some projects. They are our partner, and I believe they are having an important role in the whole sustainability piece. So yes, we've been, this year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. And again, I mean, even though I like to say that sustainability doesn't really know any boundary, but our geographic scope is the whole county, and it's 20 cities and towns. And one thing that's perhaps a little bit particular about this nonprofit is that even, from the very beginning, we've had a systems-based approach, meaning that we look at sustainability, not just looking at the environmental impacts, but also considering a green economy and social equity. And we truly believe all 3 E's, as we name them, they have to work in concert for us to get to true sustainability. I just wanted to give you a glance of some of our events. I apologize, I think it's not super sharp here, but those were the good old days, and I certainly hope that we can meet in person soon, very soon again. With that, I wanted to move on our key programs. So right now we have, in addition to our advocacy efforts, we have 5 key core programs that we are pursuing. And I would say all of these programs fall into any one of the following 3 buckets. Have programs that fall more under the inspiration. That's our annual awards program, and also the monthly happy hours. They both fall under this category. Then we have another category of program that deals more with metrics and measurements, because we all know, I mean, it's great that we are aspiring for our county to accelerate its sustainability performance. But of course, what you track, I mean, it's easier to see progress and to make sure that we are moving at the right pace and at the scale that's needed in terms of, achieving sustainable development. So under that category, we have our yearly indicators report program, and also our newest program, the Sustainability Dashboard program. And last but not least, we have yet a bucket, and this bucket deals with tools and basically resources. And under this bucket, we have our Sustainability Ideas Bank. This program is about years old, and basically what it is all about, it's a compilation of sustainability solutions. So I'll go into more details on all of this program real quickly, but I did want to share with you this slide shows our positive impact on the ground. Now I will also mention we do also have annual reports, and the latest annual report, I mean, I'm not sure if you can see it, Claire. Does it show the hyperlink at the bottom of the slide?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you can also, you'll see what we've been up to last year. And I'm not going to spend much time here, but I did want to mention awards program, as I said. So that's an annual program. It's been actually, we're celebrating our 23rd year of annual awards. And what's really exciting is we've been able to recognize over 100 deserving organizations and individuals, and kind of like a little appeal to you all. I mean, so typically in the fall, we start with a call for applications. If you yourself, I mean, it's okay to self-nominate, or if you know a deserving individual or organization, and that can be a nonprofit, that can be a government entity, or that can also be a business company. So you feel free to nominate them. And so, as I said, so we are having actually our annual award celebration coming up. That's on Wednesday, May 11th. We are fortunate enough that State Senator Judge Becker is going to be our AMC. It's free. And not only are we celebrating our sustainability awardees, and also in conjunction with the American Institute for our San Mateo office, we also have issuing a Green Building Award. But in addition to that, we are also acting as the host for Peninsula Clean Energy. I think most of you probably know what they're all about, our community choice aggregators. So they're like basically supplying us with clean energy for our energy needs. So they have also the second All Electric Awards. So quite exciting. I hope you can all make it, and it's free. So again, I will share the PowerPoint afterward, and you'll have all the links to sign up. And I did want to mention that in conjunction with the awards ceremony, we're also having a virtual auction starting actually next week, May 4th to the 15th. And we have all sorts of like great, auction items, like, we have some wine connoisseurs that gave us like great bottles of wine. We have stays at Lake Tahoe. There is, I just heard you talk about the unfortunate events that happened on the beach, that we do have like guided tours for the seals and so forth. So again, that's free. You're welcome to register. Okay, moving on to the indicators report. So this program has been in place for over 20 years. And each year what we are doing, we are diving deep into a given sustainability topic. So I joined Sustainable San Mateo County about 4 years ago. And since I joined, we've had a little bit more of a focus on climate change, because that's really one of the most pressing issues that we are facing. And so last year, we focused on equitable housing, which is also an important issue to discuss. Are, not only do we and we do emissions, and this year we are going to focus on electrification of existing buildings. So I did want just to point out, going back to last year's indicator report. So just a few facts. I'm going to go like really quickly, but one thing that we uncovered is that the job to housing ratio was not great, and actually it's been getting worse. So you can see here, looking at analyzing the numbers, we saw that over a period of 9 years, whereas we would have like slightly over 100K new jobs, really the new housing units were not following up. We had less than 10,000. So it's like a factor 10 that we're talking about here. Looking at housing in the pipeline, so that was the same story. And then when we looked a little bit deeper into the numbers, looking at RHNA, the Regionally Housing Needs Assessment, that's basically the housing needs that are being set by ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Government. So basically they're looking for different income level, how much housing should be built. So that was a big issue, because basically what we uncovered is that for San Mateo County, all the low to very low income, housing, they were just fulfilling like 30% of what the amount of permits that needed to be issued for them. And I mean, of course, then not surprisingly for, household incomes that were over 180K. So we saw that 150% of the RHNA allocation was fulfilled. So I think I also have here the one stats about renters. And that was kind of like mind-boggling to us to see that in order for a renter to be able to afford an average.
Well, my cat just blasted by me. From 0 to 100, just poof, it was like a flash.
Okay. So in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom housing unit, you were required to make $51 per hour. So that's like over 3 times the minimum wage, quite mind-boggling. So I'm going to accelerate here a little bit, but I mean, I did want to also mention in 2020, we had our indicators report on the topic of climate change and renewable energy. So we looked at the county's roadmap to decarbonization. And in parentheses, what you see here are some of the topics that we covered. But basically, I mean, what we found, what was really interesting, looking at the city's climate action plans, we uncovered that only 13 out of the 20 cities actually have caps that are older than 2017. So there is a little bit of a need here to catch up. And in comparison, we had 6 cities that have updated the caps for 2019 and onward and had a little bit more aggressive goals. That also included the county's unincorporated areas. They came up with an updated cap in 2021. And then I did want to mention the REACH code. So basically, I mean, the local building energy codes that established and are more stringent and set up like more stringent requirement for energy use in building design and construction. And so we've seen some progress here, which is nice, and there is still more that can be done in this area. Okay, so moving on to the dashboard project. As I mentioned before, so that's actually our newest project. We started it a year and a half ago, and that was really a collaboration with all our local cities and towns. And basically what this is all about is we came up with what we call 11 sustainability categories or dimensions. And for each one of them, we try to look at good metrics that could be a good proxy, meaning that they would give a good indication on how the cities were doing in like these different sustainability dimensions or categories. So, it was a little bit of a process to figure out what data we should use and how to normalize it. We had, of course, to come up with data over which the cities had some control, because we can't really, it's not reasonable to ask the cities to make change if they don't really have control over a given metric. And then we also needed to look at data that was publicly available. We also looked at the frequency at which the data was collected and updated. So just a range of criteria. So right now we've been meeting with the various cities, also seeking, first sharing the result with them, and we got a lot of the numbers, by the way, directly from the cities too, which is great. And we're also looking for the feedback because, as I mentioned, that's a young program. So, you know, it's evolving. I mean, it's not set in stone. I mean, I'm sure like some great feedback, and we may be updating some of the collected metrics or, you know, the way we are normalizing some of the metrics. So we will finish those conversations with the cities, and then sometime at the end of Q2, beginning of Q3, and that's for the calendar year, we will release the data with the general public. And what's kind of great too is we offer the city an opportunity to come up and share a narrative. So because we want the cities to be able to put their result into the context and also perhaps explain what's been happening, because the data, quite frankly, is a little bit lagging behind. So we know that a lot of progress has been done by many cities on many fronts. And so that's an opportunity for them to let the public know about that. All right, so I think, so those are the sustainability dimensions I mentioned. So you can see it's not just about the environmental dimension, but we're also incorporating the economy and social equity. And that's kind of like how it looks like. So you see the areas that are colored in the different colored blocks. So those are some of the sustainability areas or dimensions again. Okay, and I think that brings me to the Sustainability Ideas Bank, because we recognize that there are lots of solutions out there that work, that are easy to scale up or scale down. And we don't, each one of us, we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. We can really benefit from all the great work that's out there. So the Sustainability Ideas Bank, that's a compilation of solutions out there. And we are looking both for cities to share their own like exemplary program, perhaps contracting language, ordinances, standard operating procedure, etc., with other cities. And then also, you know, we are also hoping that they will be able to find some solutions that they can use. And one thing that's unique about our Sustainability Ideas Bank, which, by the way, I mean, we have it on the website. We have like close to 80 solutions to date. We are about to publish, so we have like some updates. I mean, we are not quite there yet, but it will be like close to 80 solutions. And one thing that's been unique is that for each solution, we try to at least have one contact person. And I call them like, you know, they're like our coaches or Sherpas in a way, because so they've implemented the solution, so and they are willing to share any type of advice and possibly also some materials with people that are interested in hearing more about a given solution. So, I mean, that's kind of like just a snapshot, but the dimension mirror the dimension, the sustainability dimension in the dashboard project. So that's kind of like nice because it's integrated in that way. All right, so real quick, happy hours. I saw some names. I think some of you may have attended the happy hours in the past, like Harvey, who is on the call today. And basically, I mean, the thing about the happy hours is we started them as a response to the pandemic. Basically, our members wanted to stay connected, and suddenly we could not meet anymore. What they're all about is they're highly interactive events. And basically, we see them as a kind of like a forum. So we do have guest speakers, but we try to have them not take up like the whole hour of the happy hour, and rather, I mean, you know, the kind of like get us started, to set the stage for a given sustainability topic. So we've we've really addressed like everything under the sun related to sustainability, from the drought to kind of having a deep dive at what type of sustainability metrics make the most sense to use, to even mindful ways to have mindful holidays and reduce waste, to even like SB 1383, etc., etc. I mean, even on open space, we had Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District that came and talked to us. And then, I mean, really what it is about, we also have a fun trivia, breakout rooms, and we really seek to allow for exchange and connection to happen, and basically, you know, a collective brainstorm. So the focus is on solutions. That's just kind of a visual to show you some of the past happy hours we had. Okay, I think we, Claire, how are we doing on time? I think maybe, do you guys want to do the trivia or should we skip that?
I was on mute. You should leave that as a teaser to entice
Okay.
us to come to the happy hour.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go super. So I'm not going to give you the response. So I'm on almost my last slide. So advocacy, I mean, I just wanted to point out some of the, I guess, events and or action we've taken. And basically, I mean, so we do tend to focus more on local issues and have to be in line with our mission and vision. Occasionally, I mean, we would take like a bigger kind of like regional, even at sometimes state approach. But here you can see some of the causes that we champion and support, like Seamless Bay Area principles, which advocate for an integrated way for our public transportation system, which we all know, I mean, is highly fragmented. And then, I mean, for example, most recently, I sent a letter of support to the Board of Supervisors that were looking at investment policies in terms of divestment from fossil fuel companies, which, you know, that passed. So that was really exciting. I mean, it's a first step in the right direction. And then, I mean, for example, also on phasing out fossil fuel from building construction, there is a campaign that to date, I mean, they have like over 30 nonprofits that are part of this campaign, and it's called the Fossil Free Building Silicon Valley, even though it's not just Silicon Valley. And we were proud to be one of the first ones to join the campaign in 2019. Okay, so I think with that, we'll skip. You have my contact information. I am very much looking forward to staying in touch. There is a newsletter if you want to sign up, and then you will stay informed of our events. I do hope to see you at one of our upcoming events, hopefully the 11th event, and then in June, we'll resume our happy hours. And let me know your thoughts. I'm interested in looking at ways we can work together. And with that, thank you, and I'll pass it back on to you, Claire.
Thank you, Christine. I think it's really important for us to be aware of what's going on in the community and who some of the leaders that we're not aware of are. So thank you for bringing this to us. Since we're not going to do any kind of vote on this, I think I'll just ask for comments and questions, but try to keep them fairly brief if you can. We'll start with Greg.
Christine, it is great to see you working on a sustainability dashboard. I have asked the last two directors of the sustainability office at the county to do this. I even offered prize money to the school district to sponsor a high school competition to build a dashboard, and then the pandemic hit. So it's good to see you working on it. I have several thoughts. I don't want to take the entire council's time. But I would like to review the specifications for your dashboard and add comments on several directions. And I would also add a comment that the county as a whole, not just the individual cities, needs to be considered. And I'm sure you're aware that the water quality and wastewater processing, water supply issues are not under the control of individual cities necessarily. There are separate agencies often that serve multiple communities. So I'd be curious how you're going to get an integrated view of the sustainability of the county as a whole. So with permission, I will email you, and you can, I hope, let me see what you're working on, and I'll make suggestions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. And definitely let's take this offline, and we are looking for feedback. So would welcome your comments. Absolutely.
Dan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christine, for your important presentation here. Quick question. Are you currently lobbying San Mateo County Parks to adopt practices to reduce CO2 emissions in regards to their tree removal project?
Yeah, so Dan, I mean, not like, you know, particularly. I mean, I have to mention that we've been around for a long time. We are not like a huge organization, but again, I mean, you know, you're welcome to email me, and I'd love to continue the conversation with you.
Okay, well, it's important. It's one aspect of sustainability. So thank you. I will email you.
Thank you.
And Sid.
That was a very interesting presentation. I'm glad to see you're working on it. I do have one question, and that is, you mentioned working with cities a lot, but we're unincorporated out here. So are you only working with the county, or are you coming out here to try to get things rolling as well?
Yeah, Carly, I mean, I was actually really excited to hear about the Midcoast Community Council. I was actually not aware of that council, so I'm glad Claire, reached out and was able to put me in touch with you. I will be honest. I mean, we haven't really had a lot of chance to work with unincorporated yet, but I do recognize that you're really an important part of the county, and so I'm excited about exploring opportunities to work together and hopefully amplify the message. So again, I mean, if you could email me perhaps offline, and then we can perhaps look at what we may be able to do together.
Well, I just wanted a brief answer, but you kind of went on. The question I had was, if you are working with the county, they just passed their comprehensive traffic management plan today. However, they didn't include any of the Half Moon Bay traffic things. And it seems to me that your group could push for more roundabouts and fewer traffic signals, because every time a car is sitting at a traffic light idling, it's just giving off pollution. And, we don't have any signals past the harbor all the way to Pacifica, but down closer to Half Moon Bay, they have probably 8 or 9 signals. So that would be one thought. Anyway, appreciate what you're doing. We need more people to be interested in the environment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carly, and especially for pointing this out. And I mean, as I said, I mean, we are here to represent the whole county. So I really want to explore ways that we can get voice heard more, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine, for coming to talk to us tonight. I am confident this will not be the last time any of us talk together. So thank you so much.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And I think with that, I'm going to excuse myself, but it's been great to get to know you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update from the CDRC, which, for those of you who may not know, is the Coastside Development Review Committee, which I may have actually said wrong, but these are very important people who look at all of the residential development on the coast before it's approved. I do have a question for the chair, Beverly Garrity, who will be presenting. It's a procedural question. I have a public comment on your presentation that a person would like to have read. Would you like to have that read prior to your presentation or after?
I think after, that might be helpful.
That'll be fine. So please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Hello, my name is Beverly Garrity, and I am the chair of the COSI Design Review Committee. And I think I'll share my screen. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, how's that?
If you can zoom it a bit, that would help.
Yes.
Perhaps just share the app rather than your desktop.
All right. I'll stop this share and I'll try sharing the app. Well, it's not actually an app. I just have this file.
Go ahead then. It's good. We have it on the website for those interested.
Okay. All right. Is it coming out too small?
It's doable. We'll mostly be listening to you.
How's that?
That's fine.
Improved? All right. So we are actively seeking interested residents from Montara, Moss Beach, El Granada, Princeton, and Miramar to represent those communities in reviewing new residential and mixed-use projects, and to participate in the update of the Midcoast Design Review Standards. This is your opportunity to have a voice, to improve the beauty of the coastside communities. And while you may not be a design professional, you will have the support of the other design professionals on the committee, as well as training and continued guidance. The Coastside Design Review Committee consists of 13 participants. There are 2 architects, an alternate architect, and 1 community representative and alternate for each of Montara, Moss Beach, El Granada, Princeton, and Miramar. I've been on the committee since 2016. The duties for the area subcommittee, which consists of the 2 architects and the community representative, are to review, condition, and approve all building permit applications within the community that include a residential component. And the term of each appointee is 3 years, up to a maximum of 3 terms, which is 9 years. And you can see from the red, we have quite a few opportunities. People have termed out. They've been on the committee for 9 years, and now we have a number of vacancies. This is a map of the unincorporated area that we cover from Montara all the way to half of Miramar, divided by the creek. This is our area of responsibility. The coastside is very diverse. It has many different zoning classifications, which require different development rules, and these are specified in the county zoning regulations. The Coastside Design Review Committee reviews all projects with the R1 single family residential and R3, which is the multifamily designation, as well as any mixed use projects with a residential component. So this is the Montara and Moss Beach. And this is the Princeton, El Granada, and Miramar. So the effort to create a coastside committee to review coastside building projects began over 20 years ago. The Board of Supervisors determined that many communities had deteriorated through poor planning, neglect of proper design standards, and the creation of buildings and structures unrelated to the sites, incompatible with the character of the neighborhood, and insensitive to the natural environment. In 2010, the Midcoast design standards were approved, so that's about 11 years of hard work and implemented. And currently, 2022, the Coastside Design Review Committee is going through the process to update the standards to complement state regulations, area character, and the surrounding natural setting, and have a more harmonious coastside community aesthetic and bring it into the modern world. Without the Midcoast Design Review standards, we could have projects that look like this. The purpose and legislative intentions of the standards are to encourage new single-family homes and additions that have their own individual character, to ensure they are complementary with neighboring houses, the neighborhood character of each Midcoast community, and the surrounding natural setting. The standards are intended for use by homeowners, builders, architects, and designers, by neighbors, and by community groups in their consideration of new single-family homes and multifamily homes and additions to existing homes. The Design Review Administrator, the DRO, actually, the Coastside Design Review Committee, and the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors also use these three standards in their review of projects. The standards are not intended to preclude individual initiative in the design of any particular project, and they're not intended to require that substantial additional expense be incurred. It should be a win-win. By thoughtful application of the standards and balancing of the design objectives embodied in the standards, an architect or designer can achieve compliance with these design standards and reduce a project's potential to cause conflict, avoid costly delays caused by subsequent project revisions. This is one of the standards that we use. This is the current community design manual that addresses R3 and multi-use projects and is in serious need of updating. The other we use quite often for one family and two family residential development in the Midcoast is part of the zoning document. It's section 6565.20. Many of us have had personal experience with this for our homes. There are several steps in the planning approval process. The Coastside Design Review Committee acts within the public process. After a possible pre-application, public workshop for large projects, and MCC comment on early referrals, and CDRC acts before a CEQA review if a mitigated neg deck or an EIR are required for environmental concerns, and before the Planning Commission hearing, before the Board of Supervisors or the Coastal Commission Appeals hearing, all of which you will become familiar with over time as a Coastside Design Review Committee member. The workload. The local coastal policy limits new residential construction on the coastside to 40 dwellings units per year. The recent historical residential growth rate has been, in 2020, it was 22 units, including 9 ADUs. The Coastside Design Review Committee does not review ADUs. in 2021, there were 40 units, nearly double the amount of ADUs and a 19 multi-family unit count. Thus far in 2022, I think I misspoke. There were 40 in 2021. Thus far in 2022, there have been 27. The Coastside Design Review Committee meets once a month and reviews from 1 to 6 projects per meeting. So why join the CDRC? If you're a resident of the Coastside, you recognize the subtleties of community character in our various communities. As a Coastside Design Review Committee member with an interest in good design, color, proportion, beauty, and an affinity for our natural surroundings, you would have a voice in project outcomes. Your role on the Coastside Committee also allows you to exercise and develop your skills in communication, mediation, and community building. Current CDRC members say, I joined the CDRC as a way to connect with my new community while offering professional expertise to help guide the aesthetics of development on the coastside. I consider it a volunteer opportunity to give back to our community, and in turn, I feel it has helped me to be a better architect. This is one of our architects. The opportunities to see how design guidelines are interpreted and applied to projects helps me in my county projects as well as other jurisdictions. And I also find that the ongoing experience with public speaking and collaboration is of benefit to anyone who is willing to dedicate their time. Another member said that since I had recently moved to the coastside and was building a practice here, I was especially interested to better understand the local regulations. Another, I wanted an opportunity to give back to my community, and the CDRC is a way to contribute to my community that utilizes my specific skills and education. And finally, it feels good being a part of something with others that care about our community and find some way to try to make a positive impact together. There have been many times that we have heard gratitude for our guidance, both from members of the public as well as applicants that felt the design of their home was greatly improved with our feedback. Knowing we have made a positive difference for these neighbors in our community makes the time commitment well worth it. We would love to have you on the Coastside Design Review Committee. To apply, you visit smcgov.org, you look for the Coastside Design Review Committee, and find the article seeking new members and the link to the boards and commissions application. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. I cannot encourage anybody strongly enough to consider applying for the CDRC. It is very important. Not enough attention gets paid to it. It has a tremendous impact on the community, and it's a great way to learn things as well. Before I open up for questions, I will read the comment the person wanted read. It's very brief. It is from Karen Wilson. She says 2 points. One, as a resident of the coastside for 30 years, I requested the county clarify the dark sky compliant regulation to include International Dark Sky Association seal of approval. Current lighting plans, the massive size of new homes combined with the new brighter LED lights are casting off much more light into neighborhoods, not allowing residents to enjoy the night sky as we have for many years. Number 2, pages 2 and 3 of the design review standards, neighborhood definition and neighborhood character are completely ignored by the design review committee. We are back to building mini mansions, harming those people who own smaller homes and have lived here for years, blocking sunlight, disrupting privacy, blinding lights that light up the interior of adjacent homes. We are losing the small town charm we all enjoy, which is exactly why this committee is important. So let's turn it back to Beverly.
Thank you. My presentation is finished. We welcome any public to attend any Coastside Design Review Committee meeting. They're held on the second Thursday of each month at 1:30. Right now it's Zoom for the foreseeable future as well. And there is a public comment section, and each project allows for public input. And feel free to email the DRO or members of the committee at any time.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go through the people with their hands up, the community and the council together, since we're not voting on anything. But please keep the comments fairly brief. And we'll start with Sid.
Thank you. It was an interesting presentation, Beverly. I have a question because I've attended in the past the Plan Princeton project that the county was going to rezone Princeton. And I don't think anything ever happened, but there's a lot of caretaker units there. And there's a lot of people living in, well, I was on the homeless count. There were people living in vans just parked in the street and everything. So do you often review any projects in Princeton? I know there are some residential properties there.
We have reviewed some projects in Princeton, yes. And regarding the homeless, of course, you know, the Board of Supervisors is an entity to communicate with, and to a certain extent, the planning department. But it would be because of a project basis. You know,
no, I meant, do you know if they're going to ever update the zoning that they started?
Oh, for Plan Princeton?
Yeah.
I don't know what the current schedule is for Plan Princeton, but it's in the long-term, it's in the planning department, it's in the long-term planning section. So that's Steve Monowitz.
Yeah, I know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Dan?
Sorry, yeah. Hey, thank you, Beverly. I want to say that, you know, I remember you said earlier, complimentary to neighboring houses. And, you know, Beverly, I want to thank you and everybody else on the design review committee. You're doing such a very important work. It's coming from the community. It affects the community. And I just want to say that, you know, I don't want to beat up. What I'm going to say now, I'm not going to beat up on the committee. It's more towards the county sending you projects that you have to fight with. You know, so I just want to say I'm hearing from a lot of community members that, you know, there are problems, these McMansions and, you know, levels looking down into, you know, serene gardens, and lighting. Lighting is another issue that just doesn't seem to be enforced. You know, there's standards, but it's not being enforced. And I'm wondering if, can you be supportive of the, what is it? The real standard is the International Dark Sky Association seal of approval, because, you know.
So your concern about seeing things that are out of compliance is in our experience, it's been left up to citizen reporting, which is really unfortunate. So the county does not return to the sites after final approval. What we do at the Coastside Design Review Committee is we have a section called inspection requests as a part of the chair report. And we raise some of these non-compliant issues on projects that we know we've reviewed, and we know that maybe maybe not finalized, or if finalized, they need to be revisited. So it is up to, unfortunately, the general public to report these things to the planning department, particularly the DRO will get in touch with the building department and the inspection folk, and then they have to bring the project back in again.
Yeah, difficulty because your average community member, unless they're, unless the light is blinding, or something is right in their face,
right?
Whatever it is, lighting or second story or balcony over their garden, they're not. Yeah, the average citizen doesn't know the process or what to do, and some of them are shy. They don't want to,
Right, exactly. It should not have to be the citizenry that is pursuing this.
Thank you. Yes.
Unfortunately, I see Chris Johnson is with us. I'm sure, we've had many discussions about this. But that is all we have. So if you care enough about it at the moment, it is important to bring it to the attention of the Coastside Design Review Committee, and it will filter it through the DRO.
But proactively, what can the MCC do to help the CDRC?
It's stated
so that the county doesn't send you projects that already have problems, and this volunteer force gets belabored.
Right. I can tell you that historically, this has been a larger issue than it is at present. Things have improved, so they're getting a lot of good people into the planning department that are reviewing these projects, and we'll see moving forward. There was a huge turnover during COVID, and we'll see moving forward how this progresses.
I will say, if I have any.
Thank you, Beverly, for everything you do. Thank you.
That the MCC does review all of these projects before they go to CDRC, and hopefully we're helpful in pointing out a few things.
Yes.
The MCC is doing much more
difficult to do.
We're all Move on to Deborah Lardy, please.
Lardier.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Your sound is off, Deborah. Can you unmute yourself, Deborah?
I did.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Deborah Lardy from Montara. Beverly, I wanted to thank you also. I just know the time and effort that goes into being on that committee, and I really appreciate you putting that into and being there for us. I wanted to emphasize a couple of things. One is, the decisions that get made here have a real impact on people's lives. And some of the small things are actually very important, like the posting of the notice for the meetings. I have a huge McMansion next to me where the developer hid the posting behind a tree and a truck, and none of the neighbors knew that it was even going before the committee. And by the time we found out about it, it had already been approved, and it was impossible to get anything changed. So that just really left, a lot of bitterness with me on being manipulated in that way. So it's not just a matter of design. I think people see that and they think, oh, it's just how it looks, but it's about privacy and lights in your bedroom window and things that have a real impact on your life. And so I'm really grateful that we have the committee, and I'd like to see it more effective than it is. I wrote a letter yesterday to the committee about some failures that I had seen at the intersection I live at. I think there's some real systemic issues at the county level, of which Dan mentioned them sending projects to you with these gross, violations that should never be getting past the planning counter. And, if you read the zoning regulations, the duty is on the builder to be in compliance, and they're just not enforcing that before it comes to the committee. And then the committee is put in this very uncomfortable position of trying to make it good with everyone. The dark sky, there's a lack of procedures. Things change when the design review officer, there's a lot of turnover with that position. And it seems like the policies and procedures kind of go out the window when the officer leaves. I asked the current design review officer, who's been there, just a couple of months, who the chair was of the committee, and he told me that he leads the meetings. So it took me a while, Beverly, to get your name out, because he didn't even know who the chair was. And trying to get some information about the
now he does, I'll bet.
I think so. And then the county needs to define. I'm glad to hear that they're rewriting the procedures. I hope this will dovetail with getting something about the lighting consistent that can be enforced on a county-wide level.
Well, the light, it's actually in there currently. That the lighting has to be dark sky and only one per egress.
I know, but they don't explain what dark sky is, as far as I know. So there's a lot of ambiguity around what.
Oh, it's actually a label on. It's a label on light fixtures when you go to purchase one or look or specify one.
Well, we're seeing lights that are called dark sky that are not compliant with the dark sky standards. It's like manufacturers are just kind of throwing that on there without, just to sell it, because they don't really know what it is.
Well, this opportunity to rewrite the standards, we can be more specific about that. We're trying to establish real, more objective articulation of the direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you for the work. And I look forward to attending the meeting and getting more information about those violations. Now, is there any what can be done about the violations? Like the metal roof that I told you about, that's actually.
Well, they'll go back and the DRO will go back and check and see if the roof satisfies the standards as required, and if it doesn't, or if it departed from what was approved originally, which again,
well, I think it was approved, but it was just misrepresented when it was approved.
Well, if it was misrepresented and something new was put in, then they circle around again and take another look at it. But if it's a matter of not being completely specified in the standards, we will need to make sure that gets in on the next round.
Okay, I'm going to move along. Thank you, Deborah. But we have 5 more people with their hands up. I'm going to take those 5 people.
That's fine.
Briefly, if possible, and then we'll close this because we are running a little late. But this is really very interesting. And I'll go to Matt Switzer for a comment fairly briefly, if you can, Matt.
Sure. Thank you. And I appreciate the questions and comments. I feel like 7 years of questions have been answered here. My question was just regarding the applicants and the members for representatives. I was curious if, 15 people are applying for one spot, how does that get figured out?
It's the Board of Supervisors who interviews the candidates. So they vet the applications, and then they will call a number of people in for interviews. Princeton is a wild card, by the way. You don't have to live in Princeton to represent Princeton if you're interested in representing Princeton. So if you sign on for another area, and there are too many applicants, or and you're interested in representing Princeton, that would work out nicely as well.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
It does, yes, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Steve Terry, please.
Yes, hey, thank you very much for doing this. Beverly, I appreciated the presentation. I want to make a few comments on CDRC generally. I was part of the original group that was put together by Supervisor Gordon to come up with the COSI Design Review Standards and the Design Review Committee 20-some years ago. One thing I want to say is that one of the driving factors for starting this process was that, in addition to the things you had mentioned, was that so many projects were getting appealed. That was really the driving force, and it was costing the county a lot of money. And I've heard the comments here. I've heard several people say the word McMansion. That was certainly the word bandied about back then, and it was the lack of standards at all that were. It wasn't that ugly houses were being proposed; as they were all McMansions, and the builders were just trying to maximize profits by building out the lot as much as they could. And it was really ugly, and it was just not really in keeping. So that's what sort of caused Supervisor Gordon to initiate this whole process. It was great to hear Karen's comments, because she was part of that original group also. As we sat and debated builders, they were just kind of working their best to try to relax any proposed standards we would try to come up with. And her comments tonight were right on. I really enjoyed listening to those. One recurring frustration has been getting San Mateo County to enforce those standards. And I've heard several people comment on this also, and it's so true. This is both at the planning level and at the building inspection level, as people have also mentioned. And this tends to put a lot of unnecessary pressure on the CDRC, since they end up having to deal with all these many issues that planning really should have resolved and sort of fixed before it got there. So it didn't become contentious at the CDRC meetings. An example that I remember happening a lot was three-story buildings, which are prohibited by the standards, but they're often allowed on slope lots, which we have so many of around here. And such designs are supposed to be sloped to the contour, but the architects would always cheat on that. So you get legit three-story structures, and CDRC would be overwhelmed and didn't really seem equipped to address it. So it's a tough job. A continual problem, as mentioned, has been exterior lighting. In addition to all those building standards related to floor area ratio, lot coverage, and daylight planes, we included performance standards relating to light and noise. Exterior lighting, for example, is restricted to property. And I think what I've seen in the conditions of approval is really good boilerplate text that sort of that describes that limiting of lighting. But the problem has really been with the county enforcing those requirements, as has been mentioned. And I think that making enforcement complaint driven is a completely broken process. We have to intervene in that process. We have to stop the way that's being done, and we have to get it done right. Complaints are usually made public. If you want to do a code enforcement violation complaint, it's going to be a public complaint, so people are exposing themselves to retaliation. I suffered that myself. I suffered a felony vandalism, and I've also tried with a neighbor trying to say the lighting was bad. The county would come out and look at it even before the final approval. They would tell the guy, you got to fix it. He never did. The inspector finaled it, and I called again. They say, well, it's already been finaled. We can't do anything. So that whole process the complaint-driven process doesn't work, and it has to be modified from that. And we know the county doesn't really want to enforce these things, so we can't leave it at that. Look at like what just happened recently, the fire station. I know those are commercial, not residential building standards, but they have this egregious lighting out there, and they were told time and time again, reminded time and time again, in conditions of approval, that you can't do that, but they did it anyway. And then when we pointed it out to them, when 20 people pointed it out to them, they still fought it all the way. And to this day, they fought it all the way. So we can't really depend on that. I think, I've heard dark sky mentioned a few times. Yes, I think maybe if we put in that boilerplate text, which is already good, but it could be made better, put international dark sky association compliant lighting, then that would really give somebody something to go on if like, I guess it was Deborah who had some light shining in her yard from the neighbor's house. That would really give them something solid to go on there. And I didn't realize there was an effort to rewrite and update the standards. Is that a process going on right now?
So that's going on right now. And really, frankly, we'd love for you to join us, you and Karen Wilson, if she's still within hearing distance. We do it, we schedule an hour minimum at every meeting to walk through the book. At the moment, we have license to edit the standard 6565.20, and that's what we're doing. We're walking through it. It'll be an iterative process to completely modify all the standards. We have, larger dreams of what we want to cover in our modifications, but we have been given permission to walk through the book and edit the book.
But that would have to go, eventually have to go up through Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, and
that's correct.
Coastal Commission, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So that's a long process.
You got your job.
It's a long process, but it starts now. So if you would like to join us.
I don't think you guys would want me on there. I don't think people would want me on there. I would complain too much and annoy a lot of people. So I don't.
Well, maybe I'll speak with you offline and get your comments before I walk into a particular section.
Thanks, Beverly.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Steve.
Ed Lorenas, please.
Pardon?
Ed Lorenas is next.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Midcoast Community Council for all the work you do. I know that it's a lot of work and I appreciate it. And I very much appreciate everyone that's on this meeting. It's great to see this number of people interested in what's happening on our Midcoast. And with respect to the topic at hand, I very much agree with the folks that have spoken before me. So I'll just touch on a few things. One is what would be important in my mind is that the things that the county infrastructure folks do, like streetlights, comply with their own rules on a dark sky. And the reason I say this, in Moss Beach, before the county decided to do a little, I can see Dave's very interested in this because he spent a lot of time working with the county on this. Before they did that, we had no streetlights in our neighborhood. I live near the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And one day they just decided they were going to light up the sky. We used to be able to look out our windows and see the evening sky, and now we don't. So with respect to lighting in general, I think one aspect of this that's really important is for the county itself to comply with these rules and not just home builders and residents. Mm-hmm. So that's one. And the comment about enforcement happening only when complaints are made by residents rings very true to me, because we along with some of the local nonprofit organizations, fought a local realtor who owns property near my home. They did several unpermitted construction work on their site, opened some BRBOs, and the subject went to court with the county, and we suffered because I was physically threatened, number one. And then the end result was that they grew a series of pittosporums that are 20 feet high to block part of our ocean view. We call it the wall of shame. So this is the kind of thing that happens in a neighborhood when residents are forced to do the county's work. So whatever we can do to force county planning to enforce their own rules would be really great. And with respect to dark sky, I think it's really important, especially here on the coast. We did prevail with the county, having them remove a light that was at the end of Beach Street, because just at that time, the scientific literature was full of literature on the impacts of lighting on marine organisms. And so the county did comply and removed a light that would have fallen in the ocean anyway. I think that's all I have to say for now, but thank you everyone for attending. I very much appreciate seeing all these folks at this hour. Thanks again.
Thank you. Greg.
Well, I'm pleased to see that smart people before me have said what I was going to think. So I look forward to having Steve Terry and Deborah Lardy on the Coastside Design Review Committee in coming months and years. But I really wonder, as Deborah put in the chat, what the MCC could do about this. And I'm just going to suggest we should devote some time in a future agenda because there's too much of this code enforcement stuff going on. It is a really broken process. And I think we have to do something. And I'll stop there. But I'd like to see it agendized and a group put together to work on it. Thanks.
In one of our recent meetings,
Greg,
you mentioned that the ITCC report.
Who's speaking? Nobody? Okay. The final person on this topic is Sabrina Brennan.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I was going to comment on how important it is that we, make sure that we're dealing with protecting our dark skies. And I think everybody's kind of commented on that a lot already. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the work of the Design Review Committee and their efforts in that area. And it sounds like there's going to be maybe some more explicit communication about how to do that as a homeowner in the future. And maybe there could be some outreach through the MCC to the community on what types of lighting is preferable. Sometimes people just, they go to Home Depot and they're not really sure what to buy. So maybe there could be some information even on the website with some suggestions. So that's a thought. The next idea is, there's just so many issues in the unincorporated area that never seem to get addressed. It could be it could be safe crossings, it could be fire danger, it could be the very confusing and dysfunctional tsunami, inundation, emergency planning. There are just so many issues. The list goes on and on. There's traffic on Highway 1, yada, yada, yada. It really seems that at this point, now that the city of Half Moon Bay has transitioned fully to district-based elections, that it's time to seriously consider becoming one city on the coast side. I personally would prefer to have local elected representation. I'd like to be able to talk to somebody who lives locally and ask them for their help, on a city council. I think it would be more effective. And when we look at what the city staff is able to push through quickly, and compare that to all of the delays and frustration in dealing with county staff, and I don't mean that as a slight to county staff, but the fact is, the county is responsible for law enforcement and they're responsible for hospitals and many, many, many things, emergency response to COVID on a countywide basis. And I mean, their plate is full. So, we are small potatoes compared to all the various things like jails that they're dealing with. So I think it's really time to re-examine the benefits of actually having local elected representation and to, the opportunity to be able to go to a city council meeting, even if it's just Zoom, and weigh in and work with local people. So I just want to put that out there, because we now have district-based elections, that means that there would be districts in the what is now the unincorporated area. So we would have representation, and currently we have taxation without real meaningful representation. And I just think that's an unacceptable situation, and it has impacts on volunteers like yourselves who don't have really adequate staff support to do the work that you need to do, and you also don't have any power to make things happen. All you can do is make recommendations, and that's putting us in a very powerless and ineffective position. And I do appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Before I toss it back to Beverly for whatever final comments you may have, I do want to tag on what Sabrina just said. It's not exactly what you just said, Sabrina, but you do have an opportunity next week, this same time, to talk to the people who want to be our supervisors and see how much of a commitment and interest you see from them. So back to Beverly.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for asking your questions and taking a deep interest. We'd love for you to participate as members of the committee as well, if you have an interest. I've been reading some of the comments, and I would like to answer, will the community have input into the rewrite? And how can the MCC support the DRC? Could a letter be written asking for changes? And I would like to reassure you, there will be a public process. What we are doing now is editing the document. So if you have access to the document, everybody does, on SMC Gov in the zoning doc, section 6565.20, and you're looking through it and you can see that it's not meeting the need, and you have a particular edit, it would be great if you could email that to the Coastside Design Review Committee, for sure, to get it into this phase. And there will be another phase where there's quite a bit of public input, but I have always found the sooner the better, that you get your verbiage into the document. The other thing was, where can the public make complaints, citizen reports, etc.? The best thing to do is to report them to the Coastside Design Review Committee. I'm hearing today and at other times that when you do try to contact the county and ask for a reinspection, they're saying it's been finalized and they can't do anything about it. Well, that's not true. So they can do something about it if they want to put the time into it. So if you email the Coastside Design Review Committee, we bring it up under inspection requests and we see if it's a valid complaint, the standards haven't been satisfied, it's been finalized with a failure of compliance. It can go back around. So that's what I would suggest to you. If you're not familiar with the zoning document, section 6565.20, take a look at it. I think Steve Terry and Karen Wilson were actually instrumental in developing that section.
Thank you so much, Beverly, for coming. This has been very useful. And there's a lot of numbers and contexts and whatnot that you've mentioned. If anybody needs help with contacting something or someone or finding something, any of us could help you. Just let us know what you need. But thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
We'll move on to the next item on the regular agenda, which is about what happens now that the Coastside has passed or is in the process of passing. And I will pass this on to Len Erickson along with Greg Villegas.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So this is considered to be a two-part presentation to the council with this meeting today. I'm taking more of a lead. Greg and I are talking about it together. And then 2 weeks out, we'll return with Greg more on the lead. The particular stimulus to bring transportation forward, besides things that are out there have come up in isolation, is to recognize that with the adoption of the Connect the Coast Side Board of the Supervisors, which is on track to occur relatively soon, the Planning Commission supported it. We're moving into an era where the way we tend to talk about transportation priorities often rotates or revolves around the Connect the Coast Side project, which has had numerous stops here. And we're talking about plans and development. And I believe that we have moved more into an area where there are a lot of actual projects underway, some run by Caltrans, some by other groups. And it's important to take a look at those efforts, both to understand and to see where we should consider our priorities in the light of not what priority list we'd like to see within Connect the Coast Side or what features, but are there particular projects out there that are doing things. And so to do that, I built a list of the projects, and I'm going to sort of scroll through it quickly here, in some different categories. This first group of projects are ones that are primarily run by Caltrans, or they're the big dog there. We have other projects that involve State Route 1, but have different pieces of them involved. Then we have trail projects, either the multimodal trail or the coastal trail, the two main projects of concern. We have our interior roads. I know a few weeks ago, the council, working with Greg's input, weighed in on the issue of the local roads and the routes to Fairlawn View. And more formally, just today, the Safe Routes to School came to El Granada, which was evidently the last stop on, which had been slowed up due to COVID, and they had a community walk led by a very capable professional that walked the interested parties, which included Lena was there, the superintendent of schools was there, many people to look at it, and they'll be bringing findings back to look at, and probably some will contribute to projects. So in doing this, just to give a starting feel for it and talking with Greg about it, there were two projects that are near term and have come up in different ways. So I just wanted to highlight them and some of the associated issue that came up. The first project is called the Multi-Asset Rehabilitation Project. We've touched on this in comments a couple of times, but basically it's a project to just overhaul the roads from a maintenance standpoint, to resurface them and do several other things. So they have been in process for some time. They asked some people who had this as a target interest to attend meetings. Greg mentioned that. And basically where they will come out within a month or two is a draft environmental document that will incorporate all their findings and put them forward. So that's it's a major review coming up. As they did this, they also reached out with some prodding by county people to look into the subject of a mid-block crossing in Surfers Beach. And so that has been added to their laundry list of what they're looking at. It'll be part of a study they do, and we will probably hear about that for further comment. Now, in doing this, they were very clear that their concern was the crossing of State Route 1 from side to side. But what they then get into is right next door, we have the Burnham Park being proposed by the GCSD. And that has, in fact, I talked with Barbara Dye about that and mentioned that it's a major project that's been out there. They're actually trying to add another element about it soon. And it becomes a major project in that area, but it also touches on issues of parking, both Caltrans parking, as well as parking that's in the land where the Burnham Park would be. And the multimodal trail is scheduled to have a design work being done there as we finish up the first phase, which will bring the multimodal trail to Coronado. And at this point, what's clear from a project standpoint is it's great that it's sitting there. And so this morning, actually, when I was at the walk at El Granada, I asked Lena, I said, well, exactly how are we going to fund this design work? And she was honest to say, I'm not completely sure. And both of these are projects that really are, either one is in the design process and really extending quite a bit, but it would be good to work into the overall picture. And the other just needs a champion to move it forward so it can be considered as well. So it's an example of where Caltrans has a full-blown project manager, a process, and it falls to us to either add direct comments or to reach out and see where it touches other areas. The other project is, we refer to it sort of as a Moss Beach Corridor Study. It's formally called Moss Beach State Route 1 Congestion and Safety Improvement Project, but it's really chartered to look at all of the intersections and the roadway between Cypress and 16th. And it's just getting underway. So we would expect there'll be some level of connection with the community, but that part isn't really, totally cleared up yet. And it comes in an area where several years ago, we worked on projects which led to proposals for safe turns and crossings. And some of those actually were part of formal projects in the Transit Authority, but I'm fear they may get lost in the shuffle. So there's not a public process defined there yet, but I'm sure there will be, but it's coming relatively soon. So these are two examples of areas where there are things where I think further look should be examined. At this point, I'll turn it over to Greg. We've talked on these areas some, or whether you'd like to highlight anything else, because when we come back, we want to look at areas where we would like the county to, the community, the council to consider actually looking at projects in more detail now or within the next few months in this framework. Greg?
Well, Len has a lot more background, and probably several of you here on the call have a lot more background than I do on this. I just want to get some stuff done. So about a month or two ago, I wrote a letter advocating for several things: a mid-block crossing at Surfers Beach, a middle turn lane in Moss Beach, fixing that sign in Virginia where the sign telling you there's a crosswalk blocks the lights that flash on the crosswalk, and it drove me crazy. So I wrote this letter, but I come to find that, and Len outlined it, there are a lot of well-meaning people and a lot of well-meaning different agencies all working on stuff, and it's just not coordinated. And so I'm looking first tonight for some community input, but secondly, for some idea on how we can bring things together. And Len focused on Surfers Beach. We've got the need for a mid-block crossing there. We've got a bike trail, the multimodal trail. Len, help me out. Is there a coastal trail on the other side, on the west side of it also?
There is a coastal trail there. I just wanted to
and then we've got
one moment.
And then we've got a need for parking, and then Granada's got this great project, so I'm just looking to try and come up with a consolidated position where we can express what we like and try and define who's going to work with whom to get some of this stuff done. So that, first I'd just love to hear from the community, and I see Barbara Dye.
Now, Barbara, could you go ahead?
Yes, hi everybody. Yes, as I reported, I think a couple meetings ago, we are moving forward with the Burnham Park plan. We have an engineering firm working on grading and parking and drainage plans, and we have just hired an architect to work on the community center, and we are about to send out an RFP for a CEQA consultant to get us through the process. As a result, particularly of the engineering work, we've had some minor changes to the project. All the things that the community wanted are still there, but things have scooted around a little, partly because of the requirements for the space for the drainage. We are going to be doing a presentation on the 19th at our next meeting, our May meeting, on with our landscape architects who are sort of managing this process and are doing a great job, and the board to just talk about some of it's just an update on the changes that have been necessary for because of the engineering constraints, and also to talk about maybe some changes to help the park coordinate better with the proposed community center. As with respect to your specific issues, we did have a meeting early on with the county about our park and and its relation to some of the county transportation projects. We're happy to coordinate. I know that as people may know, there's a large Caltrans right-of-way between our property, the Burnham Park property, and the highway, and that is really for Caltrans to decide what goes there. If there is a mid-block crossing, we've committed to connecting to it. So that's straightforward. The other piece that we discussed, and it wasn't finalized, but I think everyone sort of thinks it's a good idea, is that the multimodal trail would come along Obispo and then go down through the park to the far north end of the park, and the county might help us pay for at least the part of it from Capistrano to the park itself, and then we would pay for the rest of it through the park. So that's not, nothing's been finalized there, but there seemed to be, when we talked about that everybody seemed to think, well, that seems like a reasonable solution to address some of the transportation needs as well. There's a lot of trails through this park. So if you are interested in knowing more specifics about where we are, watch us on the 19th.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. At this point, I have the full list here. It has been posted, and if you look at it later on and want to give input to Greg or myself with questions, please go ahead. But right now, if there are any questions from the public and the council to elaborate on any particular point they see here, we're not going into detail, but happy to add any clarifications or take any comments. So I see we have Sabrina Brennan.
Yes, thank you. So here we are again, trying to do work that really needs to be handled by staff at a city level, and yet we have no city to do this for us. So we're essentially crippled. Maybe that wasn't the best choice of words, but I think you get the idea. This just isn't working. As far as priority goes, obviously, emergency evacuation routes should be the #1 priority right now. That is not being handled. If there was a fire on the coast side that was significant, or a tsunami, we would not have any plans in place that are logical to get out and to essentially try to save ourselves. So there needs to be a sort of re-envisioning of this, and safety needs to be the #1 priority. And particularly, we need to completely revamp the dysfunctional tsunami evacuation plan, which has signage that conflicts with itself. And we need to address the fire dangers, and we need to have the fire load reduced drastically, and the county needs to come up with the funding for it. Obviously, funding is going to be a problem throughout all of this. And I don't know how emergency evacuation got left out of this plan, but that needs to be addressed ASAP. If we address that, that will also fix many, many, many other problems, because in order to evacuate, we're going to need to get on bicycles, and we're going to need to use our legs and walk, because Highway 1 will be complete gridlock. So we're going to have to ride bikes, walk, use scooters, whatever, to get up the nearest hill. That's going to mean that we need safe Highway 1 crossings, that we need routes that are trails to help us get to safe ground. So just pointing out that this is a really important component of planning that hasn't been addressed. So I would appreciate it if the MCC would help refocus the county on emergency evacuation planning. Obviously, all the other stuff that's in this plan is important. The plan now is quite dated since it's been collecting dust for what feels like a decade. I don't know how many years it's been, but it just seems like this has been worked on forever. There are things that have been left out, which you guys are aware of, that should be included. And there should be meetings and planning for funding. And that needs to get talked about, and that needs to get addressed. And Caltrans needs to come and explain it. And I heard you guys had Caltrans at one of your meetings recently, and I was a little shocked that this was not the topic. So I hope that there's a way we can actually implement some of this stuff, but it's incredibly frustrating for many of us. I mean, I'm not an old timer on the coast side. I've only been here 22 years, yet, in the time I've been here, I have not seen anything implemented. So I think we're all like really, really ready to see some actual implementation on some of these plans that we've been asked to volunteer and contribute to for so long. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sabrina. Dan?
Yes, thank you, Lynn. Highway 1's been discussed for a number of years, and what is it now? At least since I've been on the council, 12 years, 11 years? And, I haven't really heard you represent, and I know you've been on the council for a good portion of that time. The overall ideas coming from the community. One thing that, crossings, of course, is a very big issue. I favor pedestrian underpasses when possible. When they're not possible, I think the second best item is a two-stage crossing, which is essentially a median in the middle of the road, in between lanes, which would allow someone to cross the road, and they would only cross one lane at a time. Once they get to the median, they would be forced to turn and then face the oncoming traffic. So the drivers would they would have eye contact, and there would be a short walk, let's say 10 feet, so that traffic doesn't have to stop in both directions. And we all want safe crossings, and we want also, the continued flow of traffic, so we don't have this gridlock and backup. Anyway, through the safety and mobility study, which you were part of, the final approval, I was there at the meeting. It was in Moss Beach. There was a two-stage crossing agreed or voted on in Moss Beach. It's been forgotten about. It's never been really acknowledged, but that's what the community voted for. Len, I'm pressuring you because you've been part of this the whole time. We do have some serious problems on this highway when you balance flow of traffic versus safe crossings. And well, I guess my question to you, Len, is what about these two-stage crossings? Why has it been forgotten? And my opinion is that it's the best solution for the Surfers Beach, to have a big median in the middle and not allow for direct both lane crossing at the same time. Get to the median, turn, get eye contact with the cars coming, and then stop and wait for a break and then cross the second lane instead of it's the wrong idea to think of blocking traffic and going all across both lanes at the same time.
The studies you're talking about were represented in the what's up on the screen right now with the safe turns and crossings in State Route 1. It's that collection of findings, which also included medians, that's referred to in the link. So what we want to do is make sure that those items are aware.
No, I don't see it. Glenn, I do not see it. In fact, it was on the MCC website.
Did you look at the links?
Pardon?
There's a link there to get you to it.
Tell me where. Listen, it's a big document. I don't know what you
click on a link from a PDF.
Which link?
I would like to suggest that some of this will be done offline.
Yeah, well, no, we're just getting elements there. And I think Dan and Serena have both expressed particular points they've got. I don't see any other hands now at this point.
No, so, Sid has her hand up.
She does.
So Len, you're just going to blow me off? You're not going to answer my question?
No, I said there's a link to that we're.
But you're not directing me to the link.
It's hard to find the link when we're on Zoom.
I just want to answer to my question.
Well, I'll put the link in the chat. How's that?
I'll check it. And if I got a problem with it, I'll ask you more questions.
Okay. Sid.
Yeah, I tried to click on the link, but I forgot it's on your screen, not mine. It's there, but you can't click on it from the audience.
The document's been posted on the website, on the blog post.
Yeah, but just for now. Okay, so I'm not super in favor of having a big old crosswalk in the middle of Highway 1 and 2 stoplights on Surfers Beach. I live north of El Granada, and we don't have any stoplights up there. And that's where the traffic starts, is always at Surfers Beach. And I know that people are going to just stroll out across the highway, but if you put a crosswalk there, what are they going to keep triggering a little signal like they do at Frenchman's Creek, and then it bottles up the traffic even more like an accordion? You can't really stop stupid people from dragging kids in beach gear and surfboards across that highway, but on the other hand, it's definitely traffic causing. So that's just my thought. And just one point to everybody, county doesn't have any funding for any of this yet. So we could have a 15 to 30 year wait on all these improvements that they just voted to approve in the so-called comprehensive traffic management plan, but they have no money for it. So it's basically still pie in the sky, and they're building themselves a nice new building with our tax money down there in Redwood City. So I think Sabrina might be on point. It might be time for us to form our own city and keep our money here. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're done there. Okay, that's all I see, Claire.
Okay. A reminder, this is, you have any more ideas, feel free to get in touch with Len. That's okay with you, isn't it, Len?
Yes, it is.
And we'll be doing much more on highway issues at the next meeting. So stay tuned. And we will move, thank you very much. We'll move to the last item, which is some policy and procedure items regarding especially hybrid meetings. So Dave?
Well, I think this is going to be somewhat brief due to
the time.
Other things that
can we stop sharing, please?
Outside my
Dave, can you stop my sharing? I can't get to that right now. Oh, I see it. No, hold it. I got it.
Okay. Anyway, due to some things outside my control and a few other miscalculations on my part, there's no documents for this item. There are a couple of things, particularly on the hybrid meetings. The Board of Supervisors has said their May 3rd meeting is going to be a hybrid meeting. Whether it's the first of many in the future or a short experiment and they try something else remains to be seen. But they're going to have Zoom and they're in the chambers and they will allow people to participate remotely as well. One thing that we have done on our Zoom that organizations have not is allow free access to chat, both everybody to everybody and also privately within chat from person to person. I've always been of two minds about that, and I'd sort of like to hear council opinions on it. It's even more of an issue now with the hybrid meetings because people in the room are not going to be able to see the chat. Yeah, it'll flash up on the screen briefly that's in the room for people that are in the room to see what's happening, but it's not like you can go click on it and scroll on it. So it feels a little more problematic in not everything being public. So I'm interested in people's opinions on whether we should continue to allow free use of chat once we move to hybrid meetings. And the other thing about Zoom that we have discussed in a few meetings is whether we mute people forcibly. And obviously, it's harder to mute somebody forcibly when they're in the room. And although we have shouted them down a few times, or certainly I have, other people may have tried as well, for all the good that does. But it becomes, if people think we should continue to mute people, which we have done in a few occasions, particularly in really big meetings, but it is people who are in the room versus people that are on Zoom. So I'm interested in opinions on both of those things from the council and from the community as well. And then I'll talk about the Gmail stuff after we've had that discussion. So I'm opening it up for initially council questions on that, and we'll go to any community input on it. I see Michelle has her hand up, so go ahead, Michelle.
Yes, thank you. I do think we should keep the chat open. My guess is that at least in the near future, the majority of people will be joining on via Zoom remotely. And I think it's extremely beneficial. Last year as chair, I thought it was very helpful that, especially when we near the end of time for comment on certain issues, we allow people to then post in the chat. One way that we could make it more transparent for everyone, and of course, even those in the room could potentially log in on mute on their phones and be able to see the chat link. But we could also just post the chat log publicly after the meeting to make sure that there's transparency there. In terms of muting people, I mean, we haven't had to do that all that much, thankfully. And I'm assuming that when we have the in-person meeting, people won't just be like shouting things from the audience. They'll have to come up to a podium, right? To speak on the record.
Yeah, so we'll go back to that.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, short of pushing them away, maybe we can mute the microphone at the podium after 3 minutes.
Yeah. All right, I see Greg next.
Well, Michelle stole my comment, but I agree with her. I think one of the things that distinguishes better run and truly participatory meetings that I've been involved in is having that chat feature on. It's just so useful for exchanging information and for getting people involved. And I completely second what she said about send out the chat log. It doesn't contain the private chats. It only contains the public stuff. I think it's a very useful vehicle. And finally, the easiest thing to do is nothing, make no change. And then if evidence accumulates, we need to get rid of it. Okay, we can revisit that later. Thanks.
All right, Claire.
I love our meetings. Maybe I'm biased, but compared to other places that I attend meetings like City Hall and whatnot, we do a couple of things right with this. One is we do have an active chat. It is so useful. There's so much information that gets put in that the people would totally lose otherwise. The other thing that we do that I really like is everybody's on the screen. We know who's here. There's no secret about who's at this meeting and who's hearing what. And when possible, seeing people's faces is so helpful because then, at least me, when I'm leading the meeting, I can kind of see what's going on in people's minds a little bit. There's more communication. So if there's any way we can keep those features, I would be all for it.
All right, thanks. Anybody else on the council want to say something before I go to Dan? I see you got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Dave. On the chat, if we do go to the hybrid meetings, I think that we could have a separate screen visible to all the participants.
We will.
Pardon?
We already bought it.
Yeah, so separate screen to earlier you said that at a hybrid meeting, they would not be able to see the chat.
They won't because it'll be up on the monitor briefly and then go away.
Well, let's fix that. Let's fix that. That's what I'm saying. So that have the chat open at all times and have a screen, whoever's speaking, open at all times as well. So that's my thought there with the chat. I do think that the chat feature is effective and it's good, but it's not the whole meeting. It's a side, it's a side meeting. Equally important, and it should both be easily visualized by anybody at a hybrid meeting. And what else is I going to say? Sorry. Covered the chat, and I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that was the main. There was one. I'm sorry. There's one other item that I'm forgetting right now. I didn't write it down.
Forced mute.
Pardon?
Forced muting.
Thank you. So I just want to remind everybody on this meeting, the whole council, the community, that the bylaws of the MCC requires that there is a free and open conversation allowed. Now, when it comes to a point when, let's say, a particular individual, let's just say they're too passionate and they're just going overboard and they've taken too much time. All right, so how do we deal with that? Well, my recommendation would be to kind of question them and put them in a position like, okay, we know we have 3 minutes. We have to end the meeting at a certain time. You've covered this, you've covered that. Final opportunity to make your last point. And oftentimes that will go over just a little bit. Your average, the majority of the comments are within time. It's very rare that someone will go over time. And when they do, there's another element of dealing with that. Now, you suggest, or you brought it up, forced muting. Excuse me, please don't use that term. It's not in compliance with the bylaws of the MCC. We need to, I understand the thought there that brings us up, but I think that there's another way around that. Let's not force mute. Let's, diplomatically ask them to kind of stop. And that's what the community wants. They want to hear opinions from other community members.
Thanks, Dan, for clarifying that. Couple of points going on the separate screen for chat. That's another $100 odd, and even then, I think you'd have to have a really large screen for somebody to see it in the audience 15 feet away. So
if they want to read it, they can walk close.
I think that would be pretty disruptive to the meeting. So, I mean, it's a good idea. It's worth
off to the side.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Have it off to the side. So if somebody wanted to walk up to the screen and read it, they wouldn't interrupt the meeting. Off to the side.
Well, it's in the meeting room we have, Dan, there's no way to do that without walking in front of the camera. So I think
that's a technical issue. We can work that offline.
I'm welcome any ideas you have on that. And on the free and open, we've had this discussion at various retreats and meetings, and I think you have a far end of the spectrum definition of that from what many of the others on the council and the county council's office have. The other thing I will point out is we've had meetings. The most recent off-leash dog comes to mind, where people were actually being, I would say, beyond rude to each other. And was in both chat and when they were speaking. And that becomes bad for the community too. So there's a lot of judgment needs to be used. And I will say, as so far, other than one meeting, the only person running our Zoom meeting is mostly why I'm bringing this up. My judgment is not a council policy. It's just been de facto policy. So this is probably a start of a discussion, not a final decision of any kind. So thanks a lot for your thoughts on that, Dan.
You mentioned county council opinion on full and free community discussion. Can you elaborate, please?
Yeah, the bylaws do not overcome community standards, and the Brown Act does not guarantee people the right to speak indefinitely, whether they be on the body or in the community. So it turns out large pieces of our bylaws have changed by the county, and that's why the county proposed a substantial bylaws rewrite in 2011. That never went anywhere, but our bylaws are not in agreement with county ordinance or state law at this point in some areas. So just something to keep in mind. But I'm not advocating we do that tonight. Your points are very valid, and we probably should discuss them more at some point.
Yeah, I think my points are valid, and you're telling me that council is saying that our bylaws are not valuable? Is that what you're saying?
No, Dan, not in compliance with state law and with changes in county ordinance.
So state law is saying that free and open discussion is not valuable?
Dan, I didn't say that item. I said parts of bylaws.
Well, we're talking about free and open discussion right now.
Okay, so Dan, this is an example of where we get way off track. Your points are valid. I accept them. I think we need to move on to other people. And we're not going to resolve that item tonight. It's an ongoing discussion item. We probably should just devote an entire agenda.
Okay, hold on. So before we close this, okay, this is our community. Every community member that lives in our community deserves a voice to express their opinion on how our government deals with us. So I am the adamant supporter of each and every member of the community to be allowed to say their piece and not to be shut off, as Sid said earlier today, she was in the past. And I have been in the past. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to say free and open discussion at the MCC is in the bylaws, and it should be respected. Thank you.
Okay, and let me say briefly, this is not really what we started to talk about. And I agree that everybody should have a chance to talk, but if one person talks for a long, long time, then other people don't get a chance to talk. So
deal with that in its individual way. It's historically not been a major problem. It's a very rare instance. Deal with it diplomatically in that rare instance. Thank you.
I agree with that, Dan. Okay, back to Dave.
Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
I agree with Michelle. I think that the chat log is very important, and it makes the meetings feel more like a community meeting to me, and I know to others as well. I don't think it's as important to have in your location, but if it was important, I'm sure we could go to a different location, perhaps a school that has the touch boards. You know, it's like a computer screen that you can touch. It's super huge. So every school has those, and maybe we could rent out, their classroom and have the meeting there. So I like the chat. I think it's beneficial. People use it all the time. And the other thing was muting. It doesn't seem to be an issue yet. I would be open to it if it became an issue, but right now I don't think it's an issue. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. I will say we have met in schools before. The problem is all the schools have curfews when you rent them, and our meetings often run past those curfews. So that's why that's not been an effective choice. And if the community center in El Granada happens, maybe that meeting room will solve some of those problems.
What are the curfews at schools? Because the sports practices go on until 10 o'clock at night.
For the rooms have to be vacated shortly after 9 p.m. because of the way they have the rules with the custodians.
Got it.
Okay, I think that's the entire council. We'll go to the community, and then if anybody else on the council has something, we'll come back to them.
Did you want to call on people, or do you want me to?
I was going to, but if you're chair. If you want to
go ahead. Go ahead. You're doing this. That's fine.
Sid?
Hi. I just say I was appreciating the fact that I think you could have the chat just copied and put into the minutes or pasted onto the Zoom, MCTV YouTube thing at the end. In the past, has it been the council's habit to copy the chat so that we know some of the links that people put in there and then it disappears at the end of the meeting, or do you keep it as a record?
I, as the Zoom operator, have been mailing the chat log to the not and posting them. We've had proposals to post them in the past. I think Len was the primary proponent of that, but far from the only one. County council was a little bit queasy. I was queasy about it because it becomes a record, but not really part of the meeting. We definitely cannot put it in the minutes.
Can you put it on YouTube at the, as a comment on YouTube?
Well, there's no difference between putting it on YouTube comment, putting it on our website. It becomes somewhat official at that point. Anyway, we can discuss it further.
Well, no, I'm just throwing that out there. And the other thing was about the muting and the timer, the lack of a timer, because I would challenge Claire to go back to the last meeting where they discussed the airport.
So, Carla, I'm going to cut you off on this.
Wait, I just want to finish my sentence, for Christ's sake. That's what you want to put people into mute. Let me just finish my sentence.
I've already said this once, and I want to say something more than what.
Right. You and Dan went back and forth for 5 minutes.
We do have a timer. It's just not on screen.
Okay, then what I would like to say is that Claire go back and time how much time she gave Deborah Lardy during the airport discussion and how much time she gave me and see if it was fair, because it wasn't. That's all I'm going to say. It would be nice if you...
That we are not as fair as we could be.
You're not. Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear, and that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, not
fair to everybody. You should have a timer. Thanks.
Timers do not solve the problem because it's still a personal action to make something happen of the chair or of the person running Zoom. All right.
Hi, I'll be quick. I just wanted to say that I encourage you all to do whatever you can to be as inclusive and give the public as much opportunity to hear what you have to say and for you to hear what they have to say. I think some of the problems that folks were discussing, there are good answers to all of them. You guys are all smart. I'm sure you can figure it out. But if you're going to err in any direction, err towards inclusivity. Thanks.
Thank you. Sabrina? Sabrina? You're muted.
Yeah, hi, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I appreciated Ed's comment that he just made, and I'm in full agreement with that. I think that in light of how disenfranchised the unincorporated community is already, because our representatives are located in Redwood City, the least we can do is make sure that the Midcoast Community Council meetings are very inclusive, not exclusive. And while I understand how frustrating it can be sometimes to manage public comment and chat, and I'm sympathetic to that, that is what you guys signed up for, and it's part of the process. It can be messy, and that's part of running public meetings. So I hope that there isn't going to be any sort of militant enforcement going on, and silencing people is probably not going to work in your favor in the long run. So, I've seen that happen with other boards, and it's really not a good look. So as frustrating as it can be, I think in the case of being inclusive of the public as elected council members, you do have to suck it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the council wants? Oh, sorry, I wanted to answer one question in chat. Marcy had said, please continue hybrid meetings. You may not have caught it at the beginning, but we are going to start hybrid meetings with our May 11th meeting. We'll have Zoom. Even at the beginning, it'll probably only be one or two of us in the room physically, and I don't know how many people of the public. Even if we get to the point where all 7 council members are back in the room physically, we will continue to have Zoom as well, because we all agree, and we've all said this in various meetings, that we have far more community participation with Zoom than without.
Agreed.
So we will definitely continue with Zoom. We also have been able to have presentations from people who otherwise wouldn't travel to our physical location. So Ed, I see you have your hand up. I want to go back to the council first.
Dave, Kimberly Williams has been trying to raise her hand and can't make it work. She wants to say something as well.
Oh, Kimberly.
Hi. First, I'd like to say that I think you all do a very good job of making these meetings inclusive generally. And I attend a lot of meetings, city councils and committees and other governing bodies. And this particular meeting, I think, is handled very well in allowing the public to participate. So if you can preserve that going forward in whatever way is possible, I think that's a good thing. You know, if that means preserving the chat. My question would be the value in the chat, which, because I couldn't raise my hand tonight, is that when we're all on Zoom, you know, at least I can post something in the chat, but I wonder if when it's a hybrid meeting and you're all in a room together, are the people in the room going to be able to respond in the same way to something on a chat? Probably not, because you're going to have too many incoming perceptual things going on. The other thing I'd like to say about timers is that almost all of the meetings I attend do use timers. And the value in having the person who's speaking see the timer is that it often does help that person know that they are cut off at the end of 3 minutes. And it prevents sort of that back and forth arguing when somebody disputes whether they've had their full 3 minutes. So it's actually a good thing for you as council members to have that so that the public can see the timer. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, your concern about people in the room and chat is part of why I raised that question. I guess we could expect people in the room to join the meeting on their phones and chat that, or I should say, because Dan has offered one possible solution to people seeing the chat. And we had tried a timer. Michelle got one that was available inexpensively. I think it was free, actually. We had some technical issues with it. I didn't want to pursue it further. Other people did. That's probably what Michelle is going to say. Craig has been interested in a timer, so perhaps we should go back and reinvestigate that. So thanks for that comment. And Michelle, before I go to you, Ed, you had raised your hand earlier. Now it's down. Are you covered? I'm going to assume so. Michelle?
Yeah, on the subject of the timer, it was called the Blue Sky Timer, and I think there was a cost associated. If you want to keep it for the length of the entire meeting, it was free for like the first 30 minutes or hour, but I think it was like $10 a month. So if we wanted to do that, I think we would have to approve that expense or find a cheaper one. And then I was going to say on the subject of like, if we're ever in the room, I know even prior to COVID, you know, I usually had my computer in front of me in the room so that I could view documents or take notes or for different reasons. So I know if I ever do return to being in person in the room, I would have my computer up. And I think it would be a good idea for all of us to have that so that, well, one, I think it would be great if we could actually join as individuals on the Zoom meeting, maybe just for visual effect, maybe not sound. I don't know, we'd have to figure that out. But to be able for those of us on the council so that we could see what comments are being made and kind of fully participate in the discussion.
Yes, members are likely to have devices and watch them. I think we did that, as you say, pre-COVID. I'm more concerned about the audience. But yes, absolutely. So my takeaway from this is we should reinvestigate a timer, and I'll discuss that with a few people on the council, keeping Brown Act in mind.
Can I ask? I'm confused with Michelle's questions, because it's my understanding that if we go to the hybrid meetings, anybody can, view it at their home, and whatever happens, let's say at the GCSD meeting where we would have a screen up there where anybody in the room would be able to see everybody that's on the meeting. Granted, sometimes you have to scroll back and forth to see the totality of the participants, but you would at least be able to see. And if we get a big enough screen, maybe we would be able to see, up to let's say 50 participants. That's a technical issue. I think that we can overcome that, but I guess maybe Michelle can reiterate her concerns, because I just don't see a problem, because the only thing is somebody's got to go to the room and set everything up. But once everything's set up, ideally we could have one screen with the chat, the other screen, a big screen with all the participants, of course, good audio, and good microphone. Am I missing something?
Michelle, if you don't mind, I'll answer this. So right now, Zoom will show up to 49 people on the screen. That's not a problem. Everybody in the room, audience and council members, will be in a single Zoom window, because we will be getting the Zoom feed from the PCTV camera. So we'll have whoever's in the room in one of these little windows, as though, we were all staring at a laptop screen right up against it. And everybody else has whatever windows they have. But I think Michelle's point was more towards personal access to the chat, scrolling back and forth, searching for it. And my comment was the audience can't do that unless they bring their own devices. And to your setup point, one 24-inch monitor and 2 speakers isn't a big deal for setup. A monitor big enough for people to actually see anything on is a real problem to carry back and forth, and we don't have a place to permanently store it in the GCSD room. So it's a technical problem of a sort, but it's a very real physical problem.
Yeah, I imagine GCSD has similar issues, so we could probably work together in the long run. I'm certain that there's some solution there. But from what you just said, maybe there should be a third screen, one with the speaker, one that shows all the participants, and then a third with the chat.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of possible things to do. We're going to try hybrid.
Just throwing it out there so that everybody's on board, and so yes, because I think with the Zoom culture, I think people are accustomed to knowing who's in the room, and if there's just one person on the screen, and then there's just the chat, right? We don't know who else is in the room. And this is part of inclusion.
So, as I said, we're going to start off with what we got. We'll find out how it works, and we will tweak over time. GCSD is probably going to move to hybrid meetings too. They've had some very preliminary discussions, and we may be able to combine things, as you say.
And this is why I voted to kind of hold off and let's get our ducks in the row first before we make the big jump. I'll stop there.
So Kristlyn, and then we'll go to Claire, and I think we're done.
So I just wanted to know, because I don't know if it was noted before, that when you do the hybrid meeting, if you do it using a quote unquote Zoom room, the layout is different. It's not like what we see on our screens. So that is a barrier to be overcome, because I'm not sure you can totally customize that. But then the second thing is I just wanted to let Dan specifically know that we have a hybrid setup at the chamber that I just got done last week, and I fully would love if anybody wants to come by and check it out and just like use it to noodle what some possible like fixes or workarounds or whatever are, but be able to do it like while actually playing around with the tech. I'm more than happy to facilitate that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm sure I and others will take you up on that. Claire?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, let's finish with that. I'm going to write this up. It's not a policy yet, but the input was all good. There's some things for me to follow up on and some other council members to follow up on. The other thing I wanted to cover really quickly is the Midcoast Community Council Gmail policies. Again, all the policies we have right now are de facto because I set it up and I run it. And so that's part of what this is just exposing what I've been doing. It has been used exclusively as incoming email right now. It gets run through a Gmail filter and forwarded to every council member so they all get it at the same time. And we have no outgoing emails from Midcoast Council. In the past, sending our council letters from the council alias rather than CCing the council. So that's something for people to think about. I don't really want to discuss it tonight.
I'm sorry, I need to ask the question, Dave. Are you saying that I could receive an email from an outcoming person, and then are you saying that I cannot respond to that person? I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying the responses today are coming from all of our individual emails. They're not coming from the Midcoast Community Council email.
Oh, so you're looking to have a Midcoast Community Council response ability.
It has occurred to me that it might be a good idea.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing important that's really, really, really important is Gmail spam filters are good, but they're not perfect. And so I, as the person running the alias, have been scanning the spam routinely because in any given week, we often get one or two miscategorized as spam, and then I have to send them forward to the council. I will also say that I don't know why, maybe because there's a general increase in spam, maybe because of the hundreds of letters we got on the dog issue. The spam going to the Midcoast Community Council has increased by 2 orders of magnitude over the last couple months from what it had been, and it had been fairly stable. So I clean out the spam very regularly so I can actually scan for something that's not spam. Assuming we keep this alias set up the way we're doing it, is going to have to do something similar. I just want to make everybody aware that the spam does get scanned for things that are miscategorized, and as a public communication channel, it's not Brown Act, but I think it's really, really important that that happen. So that's all I really wanted to say about that at this point.
Thank you, Dave. That does raise a question, though. Is a community member, honestly, and trying to communicate to the council. And then does it go to spam? And then is it possible that you recognize it as spam, but it's actually something that is, this sounds like something that we should take offline, but I just wanted to say that it's, this whole technology thing is, it's hard to stay on top of, right? So, but we certainly do not want to have a shy community member that will only send one message and then it goes to spam and then it never gets relayed to the council.
It gets relayed.
Yeah,
I'm saying, no, whoa. If it's called spam and it's shut down, it will never get relayed.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is correct, Dan.
Okay.
And I am far from an infallible human being, but
nobody's infallible.
But I'm pretty careful about that. Most of these are very obviously spam. The ones that I'm not sure about, I actually open and look up.
Just marking a note for concern. That's all moving forward. That's
valid concern. Okay.
Okay. We're getting late. I'm the one that pulled the minutes. I have only one concern. I don't know what concerns were already fixed. My concern was in paragraph 5, the sentence, Lynn noted that connect the coast side. That needs to be fixed.
That was noted.
You already got that? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I have nothing else to say about it. If there's a motion to entertain approving, that'll be great.
I'll move we approve with the typos fixed.
Second.
Can you call the roll then?
We'll call it. Going down. Claire.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm yes, 7-0.
Thank you. Council activity.
I have a bunch. First of all, I attended the GCSD meeting the other night. They approved the sewer connections for the existing RV park bathroom and for the brand new RV park on Capistrano at that meeting. They also heard a presentation on a potential disc golf course on the CUSD property just south of Clipper Ridge, and conceptually agreed it's worth pursuing with the school district. I know that there was significant community interest on that. I attended the Planning Commission meeting today. Several people reported on that. Sorry, I've lost it. The propane tank that we discussed last week, or last meeting, I did send a note to the Planning Commission. I did not need to send our letters because they had been included in the staff report. I just referred to them and referred to our website page for the slide deck on the issues. It had extensive discussion. A number of people from the public spoke, including some of the people at the meeting here tonight. The CDP did get approved with some additional conditions suggested by Commissioner Ketchum. So not ideal from equity justice perspective, in my opinion, but better than what they had before. And the other thing that, of course, happened is they did approve Connect the Coast Side and forward it to the Board of Supervisors, as I think was already reported. That's it.
Anyone else for community or council activity? Oh, Greg. You've got your hand up.
You know, it's late, so I don't really want to go into a lot of details, but you know, I've been attending the Montero Water Board and the SAM meetings, and I will just tell you that there is a pending issue with a potential overflow that nearly crippled the SAM plant. And one immediate solution is to do what Pacifica tried to do, which is install some wet weather storage to hold the surge. And right now they have that. We have that in the pipes that come from the north. We don't have any that comes from Half Moon Bay. So I have been in email exchanges with the mayor of Half Moon Bay, the city manager of Half Moon Bay, and John Dowdy, the head of public works in Half Moon Bay, to try and agree on a fact foundation and then hopefully a solution. And this will come up again. There's other stuff going on, but it's late at night. And I'm only going to mention that one thing because it's potentially going to be money and it's going to matter to people.
Okay, anyone else? If we go on to upcoming agendas, let me just note what's in the agenda here, and then people can add or comment. Next meeting will be focused on highway issues. The meeting after that will be the Quarry Park Master Plan, along with other issues involving parks. Coming down the pike, we have requests or plans for seamless transportation, county housing element, mid-pen updates, RCD boundaries, the scoping project report, follow-up on school safety, Miramar Bridge plans, and the lead study requests from the airport, as well as history presentation and more policies and procedures. So all those are on the the drawing board, and I'm open for comments on that. Michelle?
Yes, I just wanted to advocate for having the lead study on one of the May meetings. I wasn't unfortunately able to attend the meeting last time when Gretchen from the airport spoke, but I did listen to the whole meeting on YouTube. And I just, she gave a great presentation, and it's great that she's so involved and responsive to issues in terms of noise, but I wasn't at all satisfied with the report that was, or the response to our letter on the lead study. We requested 3 different types of studies, and they kind of brushed off 2 of the studies we requested, and are doing some runoff studies, but we haven't seen the results of that yet. I will follow up with her to try to see what the results are of that study, because she did say within 2 to 3 weeks we would have results. But I do think we need to write a response and not wait a long time to do it. So I would ask that be put either on the May 11th or May 25th meeting.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to fall, but I understand that it's important, and it's definitely on the list, and I hear you want it to be moved up as far as possible.
Could we agree a sense of the council that Michelle draft that letter up now?
Well, we don't necessarily have the time to decide what she's going to put in it. She could get it ready.
Right, we don't.
And we don't have an agenda item to do it. I mean, Michelle, I'm sure, is going to start working on it regardless. So,
yeah, and I'd love to work with 1 or 2 other council members as well. Greg?
Yeah, sure.
Anyone else?
You guys can get started and then pull somebody else in if you want.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So Claire, not strictly an agenda item, but you mentioned the Murata Road Bridge. I did want to let the community know that we received the final plans in response to a request, Claire, and they are now on our website, and they're also on the county website. So if you look under Murata Road, you'll see the plans and a little bit of an update on those.
And I don't know if we need an agenda item on it. I haven't looked at the plans yet, but at least they're there. Okay, are we ready to adjourn, or?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Len, could you call the roll?
Dave?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Me, yes. Greg?
Yes.
And Claire?
Yes.
7-0. Night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.